Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto, grandson of Madara and Tobirama. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Uchiha Madara 2412 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Kuchios, Edot Tensei or Summoning, Impure World Reincarnation. A S-rank technique that binds the soul of a deceased person to a living vessel, restoring them as they were when they were alive in order to do their summoner's bidding. It was originally created by Senju Tobirama, after which he declared it a kinjutsu and placed it in the Scroll of Seals. Before this technique can be performed, the user must first acquire a sample of the DNA of the person they intend to reincarnate. The soul of the intended must also reside in the Pure Land. Souls trapped in the stomach of the Shinigami, for example, cannot be reincarnated so long as they reside there. A living sacrifice is also required for the reincarnated soul to use as a vessel. To actually perform the impure world reincarnation, the DNA of the person to be reincarnated is smeared on a special scroll. Once the scroll is activated, the remains spread out in the form of a special seal with the living sacrifice in the center. Then dust and ash encase the sacrifice's body, giving them the same appearance that the reincarnated had at the time of their death. The process is apparently painful for the sacrifice. The sacrifice's chakra signature is completely overridden with the chakra of the one being reincarnated. Although the sacrifice is still technically alive so long as the technique is active, their body will never again be theirs and the body will die when the reincarnated soul is released. Although Tobirama was the technique's creator, his usage had two flaws. The reincarnated souls were nowhere near as powerful as they were while alive, and he could only control so many at a time. Of course, these stipulations couldn't and wouldn't stop Uzumaki Naruto, a boy with an insane amount of luck and near unlimited chakra coming from the Kyuubi no Kitsune on his side. And so our story begins. In a forest, with a blonde-haired boy and a scroll. Naruto was feeling good about himself. How couldn't he with the accomplishments he had achieved today? Well, this morning was bad because he had failed the genin graduation exams, but it had gotten better from there. Mizuki-sensei had came to him after the exam and told him about the secret exam, stealing the Scroll of Seals. That night he had successfully sneaked into the Hokage Tower, past the patrolling ANBU and into the Hokage's secret library. But the Hokage, a man named Sarutobi Hiruzen, who he called Gigi, caught him just as he was about to reach for the scroll. In a spurt of genius, Naruto utilized his Oiroke no Jutsu, sexy technique, and managed to knock the Hokage out. Through a massive nosebleed, who knew that Gigi was such a massive pervert. Sneaking back out, he ran to the clearing in the forest that Mizuki-sensei told him to go to, settled down, and opened the scroll, eager to learn a new jutsu. He spent about 2 hours give or take learning the Kagebunshin no Jutsu. This technique was really easy. He didn't know why, but these clones were easier to make than the clone jutsu that they taught in the academy. He could make hundreds. The clearing was filled with clones of him. They were solid as well, a total replica of him. He had planned to paint the Hokage mountain as a genin graduation celebration. These clones would make it much easier as there would be hundreds of him painting. Take that, Iruka-sensei. You won't find me this time. He had an hour left till Mizuki-sensei was supposed to arrive, so Naruto reckoned that if he learned another technique he could get extra credit. So he skimmed through the scroll once more looking for another badass jutsu to learn. Naruto couldn't understand most of these techniques. They involved complicated processes and stuff. He thought he saw some jutsu made by Gigi in there as well. Near the end of the scroll there was a technique that caught his eye. Kuchios, Edot Tensei. A technique to resurrect the dead. It looked simple and only needed 5 hand seals. Tiger, snake, dog, dragon, clap hands. What's this living sacrifice? DNA? Naruto frowned at the technique. He didn't want to kill anybody just to do the technique, and he didn't have any DNA. He sighed in disappointment. It was no use, time to move on. Oigaki! What the hell? Who's there? Naruto shouted, turning around wildly, looking for whoever just spoke. Doesn't matter, Gaki, I'll explain later. I can help you do the resurrection technique. Go to the end of the scroll, there should be 2 seals that can help. Why should I trust you? He questioned nervously, the voice was scary. You shouldn't. I'm just helping you because I'm bored. Now hurry up, you only have 45 minutes left. Naruto looked back at the scroll. He couldn't trust the creepy voice, but it couldn't hurt to try. He further unfurled the scroll until he reached the center wood piece. Upon the wood lay 2 identical drawings with the kanji 4 seal in the middle. Naruto stepped back and glared at the innocent ink markings. How the hell do I work these? Smear a little blood and channel chakra on each seal, it should work. Still a little wary, Naruto only cut his thumb. He smeared the gathered blood across the 2 seals, channeling chakra when he had finished. In a puff of smoke appeared 2 vials filled with a red liquid that he reckoned was blood. Whose blood is this? I have no idea whatsoever, I just knew it was here. The voice seemed ashamed. Naruto held the vials up. We just need a sacrifice then him haha. He rushed back to the scroll and reread the jutsu. What are you thinking of, Gaki? Naruto smirked, reminiscent to a fox, the Edot Tensei thing. It basically turns the sacrificed person into chakra, doesn't it? From what I can see, yes it does. You don't mean? He could tell that the voice was surprised by his idea. We could use shadow clones. From what I can work out, the Kage Bunshin jutsu is totally made of chakra, if we use the clone instead of the person for the sacrifice. Hey, I never knew you were so smart, Gaki. It probably would work. What are you waiting for? Get to it. Aye, sir. He mock saluted the air and set off to work, curious about the end result of the super sneaky jutsu. Summoning 2 clones, he had them each take a vial of the unknown blood and stand a few feet apart from each other. You don't have enough chakra for this, so I'll give you some of mine. Suddenly Naruto felt a rush of chakra filling his body. It felt amazing flowing through his body, but it felt evil at the same time. Deciding to get it over with, he went through the hand seals and then channeled all the chakra he could into the technique. Kuchios, Edot Tensei! The blonde shouted, slamming his hand upon the seal on the scroll. Glowing red lines spread from the scroll of seals towards the clones, forming complex formulas on the ground and on the clones. When the clones had been completely covered, they started screaming in pain. A minute later, ash started forming at the feet of the clones, rising up and engulfing them, forming into new skin and material as it rose. When it had finished, 2 men stood in front of Naruto, 2 very iconic figures looking very much alive-ish. Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. He only knew it was them since he had once gone to the library looking for information on powerful ninja for a class project. Haha, it worked! Naruto crowed triumphantly, ignoring the 2 resurrected men. The 2 resurrected men looked towards the orange-clad boy as he was jumped around in apparent joy. It seems we've been resurrected, Madara, Hashirama said, turning to look at his former friend. The black-haired man looked at the blonde-haired boy curiously. The boy looked a lot like. So it seems Hashirama Baka, the boy acts like you. Madara was wondering what the hell was going on. Hashirama fell into a bout of depression, rainy clouds forming over his head. So mean. Boy. Naruto stopped celebrating and looked at the black-haired man. Uchiha Madara, he reminded himself. Who are you? Where are we? And what the hell are you doing messing around with the forbidden scroll? Madara's voice was stern. This was not how he was supposed to be resurrected. Me? Well, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. We're in a forest to the east of Konoha. I can't tell you about the last one. Naruto trailed off anxiously near the end, not wanting to get in trouble for what he did. Hashirama suddenly recovered from his depression and looked at Naruto curiously. Huh? Uzumaki? You don't look like any other Uzumaki I've seen. They normally have red hair. Naruto looked at Hashirama with wide eyes. There are others with the Uzumaki name? I thought I was a clanless orphan. The Senju looked confused. Clanless? When I was alive there were an entire island full of them. Mito-chan, my wife, was an Uzumaki. Naruto was about to respond, but Madara cut in, curious about something. Uzumaki. How exactly did you resurrect us? The technique feels a bit different than the normal one described. Naruto's eyes lit up and a wide grin overtook his face. I used shadow clones instead of real bodies. The Edot Tensei jutsu said it changed the body into chakra, so I thought the clones could work since they were made of chakra. I didn't want to kill anyone, so that may have changed it a bit. I don't know much about this technique. I was just trying it because it sounded cool, and then a weird voice came out of nowhere and told me what to do. Madara and Hashirama's eyes went wide. Shadow clones. The boy was a genius if he thought of that. And the first time seeing the jutsu. Definitely a genius. Although the weird voice sounded suspicious. They reached out to the boy with their sensing and felt a familiar presence. Kyuubi. The boy obviously didn't know he was a Jinchuriki. Hashirama was about to tell him, but 2 flying blurs landed in the clearing. Run, Naru. Give me the scroll, Naruto. They both stopped, looked at the scene in front of them. Why the fuck were Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara standing there? They were dead. WW, what the hell? Mizuki stuttered. The Kyuubi brat wasn't supposed to be able to learn anything from the scroll. Shodai-sama, Uchiha and Madara, how are you alive? Iruka stuttered, eyes wide, staring at the men between himself and Naruto. I have no idea whatsoever. Hashirama sounded a bit too cheery, but we're back. Kind of, I don't know exactly why though. Hashirama frowned. Madara crossed his arms and channeled some of his ki, making the 2 Chunin fall to their knees. The Uzumaki boy resurrected us with the technique from the scroll. That's all you need to know. He drawled, bored now. Iruka looked at Naruto with amazement. Naruto was the one to resurrect the 2 legendary shinobi. Mizuki, who was blinded by his hate for Naruto, didn't really see them as a threat, thinking that this was some sort of elaborate illusion cast by the Kyuubi. Naruto, there's no point in you having the scroll, I'll tell you the truth. Mizuki was starting his monologue. He had planned this speech for years. Iruka started panicking, sweat running down his tan face. No! Mizuki, that's forbidden. Mizuki ignored the other Chunin, instead focusing on Naruto. 12 years ago the demon fox was killed, right? But that's wrong, it was actually sealed. Sealed into a newborn baby. Since that day a special law was made for the village. Naruto, looking confused, muttered, a law? But this law was never supposed to be mentioned to you, the rule that nobody is allowed to talk about the fact that you are the Kyuubi. Hashirama looked over to Madara. Is this guy an idiot? He deadpanned. Madara looked at the raving teacher and sighed. Yes. Even more of an idiot than you are. Hey, I'm not that idiotic. Hashirama protested. They looked back at Naruto to see him almost in tears, then at the idiotic teacher, watching him preparing to throw a massive shuriken. Hashirama sighed. Let's stop the idiot then, shall we, Madara? Hashirama, I'm not going to dance with such a weakling, you take care of it. Madara turned his back and focused on his sensing technique, processing everything he could sense. Hashirama sent a glare at Madara, but it was a lost cause. He sped through a set of hand seals ending on snake. Mokutan, Deijirin no Jutsu, wood release, great forest technique. Hashirama's right arm transformed into sharp branches of wood and extended towards Mizuki, who had recoiled in shock. He still thought it was an illusion, however, and didn't even try to dodge. His mistake was the thing that killed him. Impaled on the branches of wood, Mizuki widened his eyes in shock as he died. His last sight being Hashirama and Madara. Well, that takes care of him. The wood branches holding the silver-haired Chunin retracted, letting the dead shinobi fall to the ground. The two resurrected men turned back to Naruto, seeing him frozen to the spot, staring at the body of Mizuki. Hashirama walked forward and crouched before the boy. Are you okay, Naruto? Naruto looked at the brown-haired man with a sad gaze. Am I really the Kyuubi? Hashirama shook his head, and smiled encouragingly at the boy. No, it is merely sealed within you, you're not the fox. Think of it like a glass of water. Does pouring water into the empty glass make the glass water? No. Think of you and the Kyuubi as that then. You are the glass and Kyuubi is the water. Do you understand? Naruto nodded, his face considerably happier. Hashirama grinned and ruffled Naruto's spiky hair. You will always be Naruto, never the Kyuubi. You know my wife, Mito, had the Kyuubi inside her too. Really? Naruto looked amazed at the Shodai Hokage. Someone else was like him, holding the Kyuubi. Madara suddenly jerked his head up and looked to the forest. There is a group of strong shinobi approaching, a Hokage and some ANBU. Iruka stood awkwardly next to the trees, unsure whether or not to go and talk to his student. Just then 9 people flickered in a mass whirlwind of leaves into the clearing, the Hokage clearly recognizable by his red and white robes, and 2 teams of ANBU. Sarutobi looked at the resurrected shinobi in shock. Sensei? His voice trailed off. Hashirama turned to the Sandaime with a wide grin on his face. Saru! It's good to see you again. God, you're so old! Madara snorted and muttered something, sounding similar to speak for yourself, Baka, but Hashirama seemed not to hear as he swung Sarutobi around in a hug. How are you here, Hashirama-sensei? Sarutobi choked out after Hashirama released him from the rib-breaking hug. Naruto here. He started hugging Naruto around the shoulders. Somehow managed to revive me and Madara-chan with Edot Tensei and shadow clones, amazing, eh? Hiruzen and the ANBU just looked stunned and Madara scowled at Hashirama. No one called him Madara-chan. Edot Tensei and shadow clones, huh? Very interesting. Hiruzen looked at the uncomfortable Uzumaki. He was intrigued. Naruto had been the one to resurrect the two without a sacrifice? Gather up the scroll and let's go back to my office. We can talk more of this later. ANBU, take Mizuki's corpse to TNI. Maybe we can glean some information from it. The ANBU just nodded and 2 from the group picked up the cooling body, disappearing in a swirl of leaves. The remaining people flickered away, leaving nothing in their absence, bar a cloud of smoke. Chapter 2. Hello? A/N at bottom. I don't know. Enjoy. Revised February 18, 17. Hokage's office. Later that night. So, there was a shuffle of paper. You were unsatisfied with only learning the Kage Bunshin and decided to learn another technique from the scroll? Yep. And instead of learning some elemental technique of mass destruction, you decided to learn a technique that revives the dead? It sounded cool. And upon discovering that it was impossible to actually do the technique, you heard a creepy voice in your head, which you know now to be Kyuubi, telling you that it could be done and to unseal unknown DNA from an unknown seal. That's what I told you. Just checking, calm down. Then you had an absolutely stupid idea that could have been disastrous for the entire village. To use the other technique that you only learned 15 minutes before to combine with the Edot Tensei and resurrect without a sacrifice. Yes. Thereafter, somehow it worked and you revived Hashirama-sensei and Uchiha Madara. That's about it. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair and took a draw of his pipe, puffing out smoke rings into the air. It seems Naruto caused trouble and paperwork wherever he went. Sarutobi took in a deep breath and looked back at the three that were sitting in front of his desk. How do you feel about this, sensei? Madara-san? Hashirama was still cheery, looking around the office in wonder, more specifically at the picture of the Yondaime Hokage. I don't mind, Sara. It feels nice to be in Konoha again. Maybe I can teach Naruto-chan, he has some promise. Don't call me Naruto-chan. It's embarrassing, Naruto shouted before pouting childishly and sinking down in his chair, completely disregarding what Hashirama said afterwards. Madara stared blankly at the Sandaime for a while before answering. I have no choice whether or not I protest against these events. Soon after you started your conversation I tried to leave it was progressive, but it seems we will get weaker the further away we go from the Uzumaki boy. I could go about 5 miles before being severely weakened. I don't know why and I intend to find out, but for now I will stay here. I cannot allow any weakness. Hashirama looked at Madara with his head tilted to the side. So that's where you left to, Madara-chan. I wondered where you had gotten to. That means you are stuck with us then, aha! You can train Naruto-chan as well then. Naruto sunk even lower, muttering something incomprehensible under his breath, and a small rain cloud forming over his head. A stark difference from his normal self. Madara lashed out and punched Hashirama through the wall. My name is Madara. Only Madara. No Chan or any of your shit Hashirama baka. Even though I am condemned to remain with you idiots, I will retain some of my dignity. Hashirama miraculously recovered from his slumped position on the floor and somehow flew over to Madara, engulfing him in a hug from behind. So Naruto-chan's training? Madara glared menacingly at the Senju, his Iron Mangekyo Sharingan glowing ominously. Madara's glare softened ever so slightly, and he shrugged his hands free from Hashirama's tight grip. The Uchiha sighed and rubbed his temples, a dark scowl on his face. Maybe no promises. And stop hugging me, god damn it. Hashirama released Madara from the hug and sat back down in his chair, bouncing about like a child on a sugar high. So Saru, can we teach Naruto-chan then? Madara's eyebrow twitched. Hashirama hadn't even confirmed that he could train the Uzumaki and was pestering him about it. The kid wasn't even a genin. Hiruzen sighed once again as he looked down at the paperwork on his desk. The foremost papers were the propositions that Irika sent for the teams. With Naruto failing, the teams were uneven, but not for long, as Danzo had sent in a boy to fill up the space. Sarutobi suspected it was Root, but he could get no proof. Hiruzen couldn't just change the teams now. This could be the opportunity he needed. He couldn't really refuse his sensei anyway. He raked about in one of his drawers and pulled out 2 black Hittites and threw them over to Naruto and Madara. Madara managed to catch his out of the air, but Naruto was not so fortunate. His head hit him on the head. Itai. What the hell? Watch your language, Naruto. I guess you don't want to be a genin then. I can take that Hittite back, Sarutobi teased. Looking at the wide eyes of the blonde, the Hokage reminded himself how funny it was to mess with the young Uzumaki. No. It's fine. I want to be a genin, Gigi. You sure? Yes. Absolutely sure. Naruto quickly tied the forehead protector on his head, but he had to jump out his seat and move away as Hashirama had jumped over and attempted to hug him. Naruto-chan, I only wanted a hug. Why are you hiding behind Madara? Hiding behind Madara protectively, Naruto peeked around the armored man but hid again as Hashirama came forward. Who wouldn't hide when you come running for hugs, Hashirama? Madara was looking apprehensively at the Hittite in his hand. He had cast away his own many years back when he had left Konoha, and the prospect of rejoining the village that was formed by the Senju went against everything that made him an Uchiha, but he had no choice. He would get weak if he left, and he was only an Edot Tensei. The way the boy resurrected him was supposed to be impossible, but it happened. He would research and discover how it was done, and when he had gleaned all possible information he would take the boy, find that Obito boy and the Uzumaki kid he gave his Rinnegan to, then go complete the Tsuki no Mi Kikaku, Eye of the Moon plan. Hiruzen looked down at the paperwork and back up at the trio and got an evil grin on his face. This was the perfect revenge plan. Hashirama would forever curse the days when he had sent his team on stupid D-ranks. He coughed heavily and leaned back on his chair. I'm too old for this shit, got to remember. No evil laughs. That's Orochimaru's job. Okay, could I get your attention please? His voice was at a normal volume, but no one seemed to hear as Madara and Hashirama were arguing about hugs and suffixes. His sensei has not mellowed after death, it seems. Gentlemen. He was louder but no response. Idiots. Would you listen for just 1 minute please? Hiruzen was now roaring at them, which seemed to break up the argument. Thank you. Now for the teams. Looking back at the paperwork, he wrote down the changes that he was making. He smiled up at the attentive faces he was seeing. This was either going to be fun, getting a laugh out of it, or hell, mountains of paperwork. You are now Team 11. Genins, Uzumaki Naruto, Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara will report to the academy next week to meet your sensei. There was silence before their response was heard, thought the village. Hide. A loud crash resounded throughout the small apartment. Genins, fucking Genins. I'm going to kill that old monkey next time I see him. Madara's eyes were twitching and his Sharingan was spinning like crazy. Calm down, Madara, you'll end up destroying the house if you are rampaging about. Calm down, calm down. I won't fucking calm down, Hashirama. That old monkey did this on purpose. I'm going to get revenge and you can't stop me. Look. Even Naruto wants revenge. This is Gigi's idea of a joke, huh? Well, I'll get my revenge. Naruto was in the midst of laughing heavily. Hashirama looked at Naruto disturbed. That was one hell of a evil laugh for a 12-year-old. Heck, his evil laugh wasn't that good till he was about 20 years old. Madara wasn't bothered. Young Uchiha sometimes developed the revenge personality sooner than most, and it was common to see revenge plots taking place in the compound. Madara was more concerned with the fact that he, Uchiha Madara, former leader of the Uchiha clan and one of the best shinobi in existence, was a genin. All of his achievements only amounted to a genin rank. He declared war on Sarutobi Hiruzen. This slight on his skills will not go unpunished. The biggest prank yet. Naruto had spread papers all over the table where they sat, diagrams, plans, blueprints, patrol routines. Every infiltrator's wet dream, all on a 12-year-old academy failures kitchen table. This is war. Madara looked over the plans and an unusual grin spread across his face. This was the best revenge plan he had seen, and he had seen a lot in a long time. Hashirama looked at the plans and grinned. He was not a revengeful person, but with what Sara had chosen, maybe one revenge prank. The consequences of this job will fall more on Sara than the three of them. If that old geezer thought that they would just accept the team placements just like that. Who did he think they were? Some academy graduates that had no skills whatsoever. This would be fun. I'm taking this one. Madara pointed down at one of the diagrams. I don't care what you guys want, but this one's mine. Hashirama got into a thinking pose. It was hard to pick what he wanted, but he decided to go simple. He pointed at one of the smaller pictures. I'll have that one. Naruto looked back at his choices and picked the last one. There was one left, however, and they couldn't decide on who was going to do that one. We could all do a part of it. Naruto proposed as he made notes on the aforementioned picture, separating it into parts. That's acceptable, Madara said. Hashirama nodded in agreement. In case this wasn't big enough, Naruto picked up a piece of paper which had a lot of data on it. Extras. Hashirama and Madara grinned heavily. Sarutobi wouldn't know what was coming to him. All was set. Now, it was time to enact their revenge. Team 11. To arms. Hokage-sama. Hokage-sama. Sarutobi sighed and looked up at the Chunin that had barged into his office so early in the morning. Yes? The Hokage mountain has been desecrated, Hokage-sama. It's horrible. Hiruzen sighed again and turned in his incredibly comfortable spinny chair and looked out the window to the monument. His jaw dropped at the colorful sight he was greeted with. Hashirama's face was now in full color, which looked pretty cool to be honest, and the words Konoha's best Hokage were written in neat characters underneath. Hashirama's work, obviously. Tobirama was also in color, but not his original colors. His hair was black and his eyes were painted to look like the Sharingan. The rest of his face was covered in insults too graphic to be described. The hapuri that the Nidain wore was painted in silver, but the place where a clan or village symbol would go was the Uchiha crest. World's Most Headed Man was written underneath. Tobirama was now an Uchiha apparently. Madara. Minato's head had childish drawings and swirls all about the face. The only organized drawings seemed to be the whisker marks painted on Yandame's cheeks and the Uchiha fan painted on his hair. Naruto. His own face was pretty graphic. With insults and, he choked on his tea, graphic images covering every inch of his face, and the words "This is not over yet" from Team 11 foot running across his forehead in neat handwriting. It was the worst out of them all. Hiruzen sighed again and turned back to his desk. Will that be all, Chunin Yahiro? The Chunin nodded and left the room, closing the door behind him. Hiruzen lifted up his pipe and attempted to light it, but there was no comforting haze of relief that normally came with his smoking. He looked into the pipe and found it empty. That was odd. He was pretty sure he had filled the pipe up last night. Opening the drawer where he kept his tobacco and Ika, he was overcome with dismay. The drawer was empty, nothing was there. Only a pile of ashes that smelled like paper and tobacco. There was also a note. Hello, Saru. As I'm sure you already know, us in Team 11 were quite dissatisfied with your decision last night. This is only a little bit of retribution for the insult. The mountain was as well. It was beautiful, you know. Anyway, the paint on all but my face will crumble away as soon as you throw down this paper in a fit of rage and look out the window one more. I bid you a good day and I hope hell treats you well. Wahaha hem goodbye. Best regards. Team 11. Senju Hashirama. Uchiha Madara. Uzumaki Naruto. P.S. All your Ika was burned. PPS even the stuff in the hidden compartment in the bookcase. PPS even the stuff under the floorboards. Hiruzen threw down the note and swirled rapidly in his chair, stopping only a minute later facing the window. The paint had indeed disappeared from the monument, only Hashirama's color face remained. Hiruzen sighed again. This was too tiring. He had sighed 3 times in the last 5 minutes. Too old for this shit. He turned back to his desk and nearly fell off his chair when he caught sight of his desk. Mountains of paperwork were situated precariously on his desk, swaying from side to side slightly under the weight. God damn you, Minato! Team 11! Hashirama laughed. Looks like Sara got our gift. So it seems. Madara drawled. What we gonna do now? Naruto asked, a cheery smile on his face. Clothes shopping. Clothes shopping? Clothes shopping, Hashirama confirmed, nodding sagely. You look ridiculous in the orange Naruchan. You won't be taken seriously if you wear stupid-looking stuff like what you are wearing. As much as I hate to, I agree with the idiot. Good shinobi don't wear neon orange. But it's my style. Naruto pouted. Hashirama grabbed Naruto and swung him around. Not anymore. This team's style will be red samurai armor. The Senju flung his hand into the air. Stop with the stupid pose, Hashirama, we're nearly there. Naruto suddenly looked nervous, his blonde eyebrows drawn down as his mouth lowered into a scowl. Will they even let me in the shops? I've been kicked out before. Don't worry, Naruchan, they won't kick you out when we are with you, they wouldn't dare. Hashirama declared. Madara looked around, his blank eyes scaring off the more enthusiastic shoppers. They are already staring at us, he stated. Naruto, Madara and Hashirama were walking down the street to the Shinobi shopping district, a place where everything a ninja might need would be sold. Everyone they passed were staring at them like they were ghosts. They pretty much were. It was an interesting experience to say the least. They stopped in front of a moderately expensive outfitting store. There were basic Jonin and Chunin uniforms in the window. We're not getting much. Just the basic shirt and pants for under the armor, some mesh armor and sandals. Madara said while looking through the black shirts that were hanging up. Where are we getting the armor itself then? Naruto asked. He was looking at some mesh under armor. Well, you can wear some of the Senju armor. I'm sure we still have some in the armory under the compound. Hashirama replied. Naruto's eyes widened. I'm not a Senju though. I can't wear Senju armor. The blonde protested. He has a point, Hashirama. Hashirama sighed deeply. They had just walked out of the store after getting several sets of the underarmor. They were now heading out of the shopping district and out into the general public, ignoring the gasps and shouts flying everywhere as they passed. What about Uchiha armor? What would you think of that, Naruto? Madara asked while he handed all the bags to Hashirama, motioning Naruto to do the same. It was quite the comical sight, Senju Hashirama stumbling through the streets with his arms full of bags. They had forgotten the storage scrolls this morning. Is it like yours? Naruto thought that Madara's armor looked pretty cool. Better than Hashirama's. You just said that he couldn't wear Senju armor, why then can he wear Uchiha armor then, huh? Hashirama was ignored. Yes. Is it heavy? The armor looked pretty heavy. Madara only shrugged his shoulders. You get used to it. Okay then. See, Hashirama. My armor is better than yours. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. Even Naruto thinks so. Shut it, Madara-chan. Question, where are we going? I don't actually know. You're a lot of help, aren't you? Hashirama groaned. Madara raised an eyebrow. I have not been in Konoha for nearly 80 years, Hashirama. I died if you couldn't remember. I died too. So we're even. Naruto's sweat dropped at the exchange between the two undead shinobi. They were arguing back and forth like children. Maybe we can drop off the stuff at my place? Madara and Hashirama looked at Naruto for a few minutes before his statement sunk in. That would be a good idea. Of course it would. Do you expect me to carry all this stuff with me all day as we trek through the village? Madara was totally straight-faced when he answered. Of course, it all you're good for, Hashirama. Shut it, Madara, you're just jealous that you're not as awesome as me. Hashirama placed his hand on his chest. Who would want to be like you, huh? Madara sneered. Hashirama pointed to his left. That guy over there. Who? That guy. The senju pointed again, now to the right. What guy? That one. There's no one there. Maybe it's your imaginary friend, Hashirama. Madara mocked. I don't have fucking imaginary friends. Shut the fuck up, both of you. God. Do you ever shut the hell up? Language Naruto. Hashirama saying. I don't fucking care. Yo. Oh my fucking god. The amount of faves and follows in the first couple of hours was mental like. I got more in 6 hours in this story than 3 weeks on my other story. Enjoy. We're starting off as Genin today team. I still think that we should be at least Jonin. Madara, it's not that bad. Even if we were Jonin, we would have to drag Naruto around with us all the time anyway. Rank doesn't matter, we are still the most badass ninjas on the planet. HN. Wait up, this armor is heavy. Hurry up, Naruto-chan, or we're gonna be late. Hashirama Baka, we are already late. Really? Oh shit. Come on, Naruto-chan, Madara, run. Stop calling me Naruto-chan. Meanwhile, around the elemental nations, Inoki was having a bad day. It seemed like a good day when he woke up. His hip was not as sore as it was usually, and he was not being woken up with explosions in the morning. Wagakure was quieter without Deidara about. The day started getting bad around when he started his day in the office. 3 towers of paperwork, the bane of any high-up leader, were dumped on his desk by his secretary. After 3 hours of painstakingly reading through and signing every single piece of paper, Inoki sat back to relax for a bit. Not for long though, as his granddaughter Kuratsuchi barged into his office shouting about another apparent lead to a possible son of that yellow bastard from Konoha, and that she wanted permission to go out on a hunt for the kid. Refusing the request as he usually did, he looked back at his desk, and to his dismay 2 more towers of paperwork had appeared out of nowhere. 2 hours later, and here he was, relaxing in the brief break he had. Normally no one would disturb him, but it seemed someone forgot. The poor Jonin was cowering under his ki, a cold sweat dripping down his face. What the hell do you want? You know not to disturb me on my breaks. The Jonin adjusted his glasses and gulped before stepping forward and placing his files on the Tsuchikage's desk. The reports from the spies and Keikonoha Tsuchikage-sama. They were to be delivered straight to you upon their arrival. It was urgent, apparently. Inoki sighed and opened up the file. It was the usual stuff. Reports on the political palava and big shinobi movements. He flicked through to the end where it was marked by red tags. Several pictures suddenly fell out alongside a few sheets of text. Picking up one of the pictures, he looked at it carefully before looking up at the Jonin with wide eyes. Is this picture accurate? Hi sir, the spies took several just in case. The Tsuchikage sighed deeply and leaned his head on his hand. This is troublesome. But that's not the only thing, sir. Inoki raised an eyebrow. What else could be more monumental than this? It seems the 2 have been made genins. The 2 IWA shinobi stared at each other for a few moments before the Tsuchikage burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama are genins ha 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 ha, crack hhh my hip. Tsuchikage-sama. I guess this is true then, Darui. So it seems, boss, Konoha won't be dull anymore. The Yandame Reikage spun about on his chair, lifting weights in one hand and holding a picture in the other. How did we get these? We have no spies in Konoha at the minute. IWA. We intercepted them while on a patrol of our borders, and in exchange for their lives they gave us this info. Why did it have to be those 2? They could have at least resurrected the Yandame. I haven't had a contest in speed since the kid died. I threw the picture back on the desk and began spinning around again. Darui's sweat dropped at his Kage's behavior. The Yandame Reikage stopped spinning on his chair and looked back at Darui. It doesn't matter if those 2 are alive again. Kyumo is still the best village in the elemental nations. Konoha is a joke these days. Anyway, where's B? He was supposed to be here around an hour ago. Darui stepped back from the Reikage, knowing what would happen next after he gave the news to A. He was heading in the direction of Genbu, Island Turtle, last time I had seen him. That was about 3 days ago. A stood up and glared at Darui in annoyance. And why wasn't I told of this as soon as he left? We thought you knew, boss. Next thing Darui knew, the Reikage had disappeared and there was a loud smashing noise. The source? The now broken window behind the Kage's desk. The door opened and a dark-skinned, light-haired woman with green eyes walked in with a pile of paperwork. Darui sighed and turned to the woman. Mabui, the boss has broken another window. How many is that now? The one known now as Mabui looked up and thought for a minute before she sighed. That will be 8 broken windows this month, Darui-san. Some more of the budget will have to be diverted to pay for this. Darui shook his head in exasperation. I don't see why he couldn't use the door like a normal person. Mabui shook her head in agreement. Orochimaru-sama? What Kabuto? Is everything alright, my lord? No. Nothing is alright. I was supposed to be the one to revive Hashirama alongside Tobirama on the day of the invasion. But that idiot Uzumaki had to mess it up, didn't he? Ag. How the hell did he do it anyway? He was a dead last idiot the last time I heard. Orochimaru was striding through his secret hideout in a rage with his faithful follower Kabuto trailing behind him. I couldn't get that information, Orochimaru-sama. All further information were classified as SS-class secrets. Orochimaru's mind was racing, trying to find a solution to this problem. He couldn't revive Hashirama as he was already alive, sort of. That put his revived subjects down to 1 as he couldn't summon that bastard Namikaze for some reason. Who could he summon now then? With those 2 monsters out there, he would need stronger ninja to stand against Konohama. Aha! Kukukukukuku, if he could get the DNA of them, he would one-up Sensei and the 2 monsters. Kukuku, it was perfect. Kabuto was distancing himself from his master. The laugh was just too creepy, even for the snake-like man. It seems you have been lying to me, Madara, the orange-haired man said, his purple-ringed eyes looking at the single red eye that was visible through an orange swirly mask. The news I have heard indicates that Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara have been revived in Konoha. If the real Madara is in Konoha, then who are you? There was silence for a while before the red-eyed man replied to the question. I do not believe that I should reveal to you my true identity, Nagato. I have not lied to you much. I just work under the name of Madara at the real one's request. Madara had died years back after relinquishing his knowledge of the plan to me. He requested that I carry on in his stead until, at a later point, we revive him. The plan remains the same whether or not I am truly Madara. Nagato stared blankly at Madara before narrowing his eyes a fraction of a fraction. You were planning to use the power of my eyes, weren't you? To revive the real Madara. Perhaps. That doesn't matter now. If Madara is amongst us once more, why doesn't he make his way to us? If this was planned, he would know of our existence and join us. Why doesn't he? From what Setsu told us, it seems that Madara and Hashirama cannot go far from the Kyuubi Jinchuriki without being weakened severely. He will probably be making plans and taking advantage of his unique situation. With him so close to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, he could possibly influence him, so there is less struggle when we go to collect the container. That would be a benefit. Send Zetsu to make contact with him anyway. His power will be beneficial to our plans. Indeed, just remember, Nagato, you follow the orders of Madara and I. You are only the leader in name. The masked man then disappeared in a vortex that originated from his visible eye, leaving no trace of him behind. Pain turned to look out at the rain that fell on his village with an emotionless face, his purple eyes seeing through the haze left by the eternal rain. An interesting turn of events. But nothing will change, and I will bring peace to this war-torn world and make them all feel pain. Aha! We're here! Came an excited shout. Hurry up, Baka, we're an hour late! Came a response to the excited shout. Pant, wait, pan up for me. Madara. Hashirama. Naruto was lagging behind slightly. His dark red samurai-like armor was weighing him down a bit as he was not used to the weight. Naruto's attire was vastly different to what he wore before. He wore a black turtleneck, long-sleeved shirt that split at the hips and went down to the knees. You know how that looks. Madara's skirt thingy, black pants that were bandaged up the shins to just below the knee. He also wore a pair of black gloves. His armor that he wore over this was identical to what Madara wore down to the last plate of metal. Madara had been teasing Hashirama about how his armor was better all week, but Hashirama ignored him in favor of exploring Konoha. It had changed a lot since he died. The team were now walking down the corridor heading towards the classroom where they would officially be put into a team. Madara was asking about the last Uchiha. So there is only 2 Uchiha left? Yeah. The one that killed the clan Itachi ran off after he killed them all. Sasuke team has been an asshole ever since. Asshole? Naruto put his hands behind his head and looked up at the ceiling. He's all broody and dark. Arrogant as well. Doesn't talk to anyone much. But I can tell that he's lonely, it's in his eyes. I tried to be friends with him, but he pushed me away saying that I don't need help from a dope like you and there's nothing wrong with me. Go away. Hashirama looked at Madara with a reminiscent look. The situation with the last Uchiha and Naruto was scarily similar to his own past with Madara. We're kinda rivals though. I'm always trying to catch up to him, but he keeps on getting stronger and stronger. Naruto looked down at his feet. I feel that I haven't improved at all. Hashirama slung an arm around the saddened Uzumaki's shoulders and brought him into a one-armed hug. Don't worry, Naruchan. Madara and I will help you improve, and you can beat the Uchiha's ass when you're good enough. I guarantee that you will get more skilled when you train with us. Tell him, Madara. Madara nodded in agreement with the former Senju clan leader's words. You will get stronger, Uzumaki. It is impossible not to when we train you, even though Hashirama is an idiot, and if the extraction doesn't work you could still be used as a pawn if you get strong enough, the Uchiha added in thought. Don't be like that, Madara-chan. Hashirama slung his other arm around Madara's shoulders. Team Hashirama is gonna be awesome. Team Hashirama? Who decided that was going to be our name? And don't call me Madara-chan. I decided. It's a cool name, and it will strike fear into our enemies. It will probably make them fall down and kill themselves due to the stupidity. It isn't that bad. Stare, what would you call the team then? Huh. Team 11. Hashirama fell into depression, drawing his finger across the ground and storm clouds forming over his head. That's not interesting at all. We don't need to be interesting. We just need to be powerful. Ack. You and your power rants. It's not all about power, you know. Yes. Yes, it is. No. It isn't. Is. Not. Is. Not. Not. Is. Ack. This was a trap, an attempt to catch me off guard, sneaky bastard. We're here, guys. The two legendary shinobi stopped arguing and looked at Naruto confused, before looking ahead at the door to their class. Oh. Let's go in then. That would help. Naruto pulled open the door and walked in, followed by Hashirama and Madara. The class was silent. They had just been listening to Iruka drone on about how proud he was and the expectations of being a ninja. He had went on to list the teams and was about to reveal the last team before the door slammed open and 3 people in similar armor walked in. They were struck speechless when they recognized the faces. The idiot Uzumaki Naruto, who had finally changed out of his horrendous orange monstrosity. In fact, there was no orange at all in his clothes. To think they lived to see the day. The Shodai Hokage Senju Hashirama, who had a small smile on his face when he looked over the class, his soft brown eyes flicking from face to face, taking in the innocence and naivety. This is the reason he created the village. And the most surprising figure, Uchiha Madara, former leader of the Uchiha clan and one of the greatest traders in the entire history of the village, and he was wearing a Konoha Hittite on his forehead. In fact, they were all wearing Konoha Hittites. Strange. Iruka turned and looked sternly at the late Genins, although if you looked closer you could see a soft, proud look in his brown eyes when he looked at Naruto. Naruto, Hashirama, Madara, you're late. I would think you knew better than to be late, Iruka had crossed his arms and looked in amusement at the two who were looking at the ground in shame. Madara just stared blankly at the academy teacher. Get to your seats. You have disrupted this lesson enough. The trio scuffled to the back of the room, where there was a free bench with enough space for the 3 of them. They sat down and looked towards Iruka, who was looking at the shocked faces of his students with barely concealed laughter. It was so fun to mess with them. Ahem. So Team 11 will be Uzumaki Naruto, Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. You will be picked up by your Jonin senseis after lunch. You are free to do as you wish for an hour. Dismissed. And with that Iruka walked out, a soft smile on his face as he glanced at his favorite student one last time. The class turned as one and looked at the trio sitting at the back of the class. Hashirama and Madara were arguing again while Naruto looked like he was sleeping. It was Kiba that broke the silence. What? The fuck? Hashirama broke off his argument and looked at the Inuzuka with narrowed eyes. Watch your language, young Inuzuka. The class just stared once more, before some broke off and went out to get lunch, all sneaking glances at the armored trio. Sasuke walked boldly up to them and stopped in front of Madara, who was reading a scroll he got from somewhere. You're an Uchiha? Madara looked up and froze at the sight of Sasuke's face. It was so familiar. Aizuna? Hashirama, who was poking Naruto, looked over curiously and also froze. It was also a familiar face to him. One he hadn't seen since that battle where the person that face belonged to was killed by one of his brother's experimental techniques. That person's death also caused a lot of Madara's insanity. Sasuke frowned and furrowed his eyebrows. My name is Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke. I don't know any Aizuna. Madara leaned forward and reached out a hand, stopping inches from Sasuke's face. He had a mourning and longing look on his face. You look so similar, Madara breathed, his Sharingan eyes coming to life and spinning rapidly as if trying to suck Sasuke into somewhere. Sasuke got all the confirmation he needed from those eyes. But he didn't move away, those eyes were so filled with regret and mourning. It was overwhelming. He hadn't seen eyes that sad before. Madara Hashirama trailed off, not wanting to incur Madara's wrath. Naruto had lifted his head off the desk and looked over to the older Uchiha. He recognized the look in that face. He had the same look sometime, even if it was for another reason. Naruto got up from his seat and went over to Madara. He stood there for a second before hugging Madara gently, patting his back in sympathy. Madara stiffened at the unfamiliar sensation and looked to the blond boy that hung onto him gently with confused eyes. He hadn't been hugged like this since Izuna had been alive. His eyes softened a bit, and he brought his outstretched hand back to ruffle the boy's spiky hair and thanks. Naruto opened his sky-blue eyes and smiled at the Uchiha softly. A real smile. Not many people had seen his real one. They normally got the face-splitting toothy grin that he put up for show. Naruto let go and looked at the confused younger Uchiha with his head tilted. Is that all you wanted, Sasuke? Naruto didn't bother with the insults. Even though it had only been a week, he had bonded a lot with the Hyper Senju and the stoic Uchiha as they adventured through Konoha, finding the sights and allowing the resurrected ninja to refamiliarize themselves with the village. Generally having fun. Seeing Madara upset was making himself upset. Sasuke nodded and went back to his seat to eat his lunch. He often shot glances at the older Uchiha, as if he would disappear any second. Hashirama was almost in tears. It was truly an emotional moment. The power of Hug no Jutsu triumphs once more. Madara went back to his usual stoic self and they ate lunch quietly, sometimes stopping to converse about trivial things. Lunch finished and one by one the senseis turned up and took the teams. The only senseis of interest were the ones that picked up teams 8 and 10. Team 8 had a relatively young-looking Kunoichi with long black curly hair and ruby-red eyes that resembled the Sharingan just without the tomos. Team 10 had a bearded guy who short black spiky hair and a beard. He was also smoking a cigarette. The most notable thing to the older ninja was the white sash with the kanji for fire that was on the man's waist. A sign that he had been one of the 12 guardian ninja for the daimyo at some point. The teams slowly filtered out before only Team 7 and Team 11 remained. And they did remain for 3 hours. Team 11 passed the time playing poker, with a set of cards that Hashirama pulled out of nowhere. Team 7, Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, a pink-haired banshee who was fangirled to the point of obsession over Sasuke, and Sai sat in silence for the most part. The only noise was from the pink-haired thing, who was switching between asking Sasuke for dates or screeching out about how their sensei was late. Sasuke was brooding in silence, often throwing glances at Madara and Sai. Well, Sai was acting like Sai. It was the end of the 3rd hour when Team 11 ended their 7th poker game. Their score stood at Naruto 5, Madara 2, Hashirama 0. Hashirama was crying anime tears thinking about all the money he lost while Naruto and Madara grinned at Hashirama. They had earned a lot of Ryo today. This was the sight that Kakashi walked into. His porn stuck in his face, he looked lazily at his team, then at the 3 genin at the back, smiling slightly at Naruto. He used to guard the blonde when he was still in A and B years ago. The blonde hadn't changed much from back then. Kakashi also spotted the cards on the desk and his smile grew slightly. It looked like Naruto had won most of the game's lucky bastard. Suddenly there was a shadow that fell across the floor and a black ball of something flew into the open window and into the room. Kunai flew from the thing and embedded into the ceiling, making the black unravel into a banner that stretched across the room. It read, Team 11 Sensei Mitarashi Anko is here. And in front of the banner an attractive purple-haired woman stood in very revealing clothing. Team 11, I am Mitarashi Anko. Your sensei for the duration of your time as a genin. Nice to meet ya. The team had mixed reactions to the entrance. Hashirama had stars in his eyes and was thinking of all the fun the team could have. The woman was clearly as insane as the rest of them. Naruto was fanboying over the woman's entry. It was so awesome. He wanted to do something like that. Madara just stared, alongside Team 7. Kakashi coughed as he raked his eye over Anko's form discreetly. He could never get enough of Anko. I will leave the interpretation of that statement to the imagination of the reader's cough, if you know what I mean. Kakashi stepped forward, drawing the attention to himself. Yo! I'm Kakashi and as you know, that's Anko. Hello. Our teams will sometimes have joint training and missions, so we are going to have our first team meeting together. It's nice to meet you. Chapter 4. I don't know. Enjoy. Previously. Yo! I'm Kakashi and as you know, that's Anko. Hello. Our teams will sometimes have joint training and missions, so we are going to have our first team meeting together. It's nice to meet you. So, introduce yourselves for us, Kakashi said, after the 8 of them settled down on the rooftop of the academy. What do you want us to say, sensei? The pink-haired fangirl asked. Everyone looked at her with varying expressions of disbelief or annoyance, mainly coming from Hashirama, Naruto, and Anko. The rest had blank or bored faces: Kakashi, Sasuke, and Madara. Sai had that creepy fake smile that looked totally weird on his face. Kakashi shrugged, leaning back on the railing he sat on. Not much. Your name, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams for the future, that sort of thing. Since you asked, you will introduce yourself first. Could you give us an example, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi looked up and thought. I don't see why not. I'm Hatake Kakashi, my likes and dislikes are none of your business. Dreams, I have many hobbies. Everyone's sweat dropped at Kakashi's introduction, all having the same thoughts going through their heads. All we learned was his name. Kakashi looked back to Sakura. You can go now, Pinky. My name is Haruno Sakura. She turned to Sasuke and blushed slightly. Well, my dreams for the future. She turned and looked at the brooding Uchiha again, and her blush deepened. She also squealed slightly, making those with sensitive ears wince slightly. Oh. What I dislike, Naruto baka. Hobbies? Sakura turned back to Sasuke once more and her blush got even darker. The rest had mixed reactions to this. Naruto visibly deflated and fell into depression at Sakura's words. Hashirama patted Naruto's back in sympathy. Naruto had often talked animatedly about Sakura and how nice she was. But it seemed the girl didn't feel the same way. Madara looked at the girl with blank eyes, but if you knew him well or had skill in reading people's faces, you would see a little disgust aimed at the girl. In Madara's eyes, she was a disgrace to Kunoichi everywhere. Anko's thoughts ran on the same tracks of Madara's. She considered herself to be a worthy Kunoichi, and girls like these embarrassed the Kunoichi of any village and only enforced the stereotypical view that Kunoichi, or women in general, were weaker than shinobi or men. Sasuke wasn't listening. He was staring at the sky, fantasizing on ways to kill his brother. He had pretty dark and gruesome thoughts for a 12-year-old. Kakashi was staring at Sakura with a bored look. Sai just smiled. As usual. Okay, you now. In the middle. Pale boy. Kakashi said. Pale boy, known as Sai, looked at Kakashi with that eerie smile. Hello? My name is Sai. I don't particularly have any likes or dislikes. Same goes with dreams. I do, however, draw as a hobby. Simple, short, straightforward. Kakashi's gaze lingered on Sai for a few more seconds before moving to the last of his team. You. With the duck butt hair. Next? Before Sasuke could start, he was interrupted by 3 snickers coming from Anko, Hashirama, and Naruto. Sasuke turned to glare at them, but they had stopped before he had a chance. He could still see the glint of amusement in their eyes, however. Heck. He could see a small glimmer in Madara's eyes, for God's sake. HN. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I dislike many things and I don't really like anything. What I have is not a dream but an ambition to resurrect my clan and to kill a certain man. Sasuke's face and tone went dark at his last statement, and if one looked close enough you could see a small glint of insanity in his coal eyes. Lighten up, duck butt. Don't be too emo now. Naruto had a wide smirk on his face. Normally he wouldn't insult Sasuke in such a way, but with Hashirama whispering in his ear, suggesting more amusing ways to piss the emo bastard off. Who was he to resist? Sasuke glared at Naruto, ignoring the squeals of adoration from the pink-haired banshee, concerned looks and a suppressed look of sympathy. Anko decided to address, in her opinion, one of the best teams she could have for her first genin team. She had been promoted from Tokubetsu Jonin to Jonin this week, but only on the condition that she take a genin team. She didn't want to teach a bunch of brats, but she had been waiting for this chance for a while. The council were less inclined to allow a promotion because of her association with Orochimaru. She had no choice but to accept, but looking now, she was glad she did. After all, who else could say that they had been a Jonin sensei for Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, even though she couldn't teach them anything? They would probably teach her some things. The blonde brat was an extra, but he looked to have some promise if he had the proper training. She didn't care that he held the kyubi. He was like her, ostracized because of association. She let a sadistic smirk spread on her face and faced her genin team. So, I'm Mitarashi Anko. I like dango, hanging about the forest of death and tea. I dislike spicy foods and traitors. I have many hobbies. My dream for the future is to kill a certain snake. So I introduced myself, and I don't know you not really, so would you introduce yourselves for us? Hashirama. Hashirama sat up quickly and smiled at the purple-haired Kunoichi, his long brown hair waving slightly in the breeze. Hello? I'm Senju Hashirama. I like trees, Konoha, my brother Tobirama, mixed mushroom soup, and my friends Madara and Naruchan. I don't really dislike anything, to be honest. Hobbies? I like wood carving and bonsai. Dreams for the future? A soft smile spread across his face as he looked past the group and into the distance, glancing at Konoha as a whole. My dreams have already been realized. Anko nodded and pointed at the long-haired Uchiha, her grin still in place. Next? Madara. Madara HN'd and looked at Anko with his blank expression. My name is Uchiha Madara. I like some things, I have some things I dislike. My dreams are none of your business. Anko raised an eyebrow at the former head of the Uchiha clan's response. Hobbies? Madara stared at her for a minute before his head dipped a fraction. Falconry. Anko nodded again and looked to the last of their merry band of misfits. Gaki. You're up. GKI. What the hell? Bob Hashirama had hit him slightly on the head. Watch your language, Naruchan. Naruto pouted, rubbing his head where a small lump had formed. He grumbled something under his breath before his wide foxy grin came across his face again, His eyes squinted. Yo! I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, my friends Madara and Hashirama. Oh! I also like Iruka-sensei and Hokage Gigi. I don't like the 3 minutes it takes for cup ramen to cook. My dream is to become Hokage. Enko clapped in excitement. Hobbies? Naruto tilted his head slightly and looked to the sky and thought. Hobbies? Pranking and gardening, I guess. Kakashi chose this moment to jump in, saving Naruto from his death by hug from Hashirama, who had cooed at Naruto's hobbies. They were so alike. Ahem. Well then, since we know each other now, I will explain what we will be doing tomorrow. What you will be doing? Enko cut in, her sadistic smile back in place. Ah yes. What we will be doing. Kakashi paused, pointing to the sky in an overly dramatic way. Survival training. Teams 7 and 11 were sitting in Training Ground 3. They had been sitting there since 6 a.m. that morning. It was 8:30 now. They had passed the time in different ways. Team 11 had picked up their poker game from where they had left off. They were now starting their 4th game. The score stood at Naruto 6. Madara -5. Hashirama 0. Just as they were about to start their 5th game, their sensei Enko appeared in a swirl of leaves, 4 sticks of dango in hand. Yo! Hashirama-senpai, Madara-senpai, Gaki, Scarecrow's Gakis, sorry I'm late. I needed my morning dango, also I wanted to piss you off. Enko was quite cheery for so early in the morning. Hashirama waved her over with his spare hand energetically, not noticing Madara and Naruto taking a glance at his cards. Come join us, we were about to start. Enko ambled over, munching on the holy substance that was dango, looking down at their setup. Okay. She sat down promptly and was dealt her cards by Naruto. And thus they began. Tensions were running high in the corner where Team 7 sat. They mostly sat in silence. The balance often broken by squeals and giggling coming from the only female in the group. Sasuke and Sai looked at each other apprehensively, locked in a battle of will, perseverance, and sheer absolute boredom. They were active people, not used to sitting around doing nothing for too long, so they entertained themselves by testing each other, discovering and outlining boundaries, seeing what information they could glean from just observing each other, etc. Sai was winning at the moment, but Sasuke was catching up. It was a close battle. Half an hour, 2 poker games, and a battle of will later. Kakashi appeared in a whirlwind of leaves. Porn in hand, he waved lazily at the people gathered in the clearing. Yo! Sorry I'm late. Got lost. The members of Team 7 except Sai stared at Kakashi in disbelief. At least Enko's excuse was plausible. Team 11 were still in their 7th poker game. They were so focused on their game that they didn't notice Kakashi's arrival. Well, it seemed like it. Kakashi decided to leave them and get on to testing his team. He couldn't fail them anyway, even if they were the worst genins on the planet. The Honorable Council had ordered him to pass them no matter what because of the precious last Uchiha that was on his team. Kakashi was tempted to tell them to shove their order up their ass but refrained from doing so. He informed the Hokage about their actions anyway. It was illegal for anyone else but the Hokage to issue orders to shinobi of this village, and Hiruzen was just letting those stupid civilians take over and strip him of all his power and authority as leader of the military dictatorship that is Konoha. So he dragged the emo Uchiha, the pink banshee, and the emotionless robot and dragged them into the forest to initiate his test. 20 minutes later and tensions were high among the poker players. The pot was sitting about 270,000 ryo, and it was the last play of the day. Enko and Madara were calm. They both had a good hand and believed they could win. Hashirama was panicking slightly. He hadn't won even one game out of the total 14 games they had played. It seemed his bad gambling luck followed him beyond death. Naruto was looking at his cards with a critical eye. He didn't understand the types of ways to play the game as he was only introduced to the game yesterday. He just went with his gut feelings and hoped for the best. It had worked out so far. Hashirama sighed in defeat, folding his hand, which only had one pair. The remaining 3 players stared at each other before nodding, an unspoken signal passing between them. They all revealed their hands at once. Enko had 3 of a kind. She pouted sadly as she had lost the big pot of money that could have gone to her dango expenses. Madara had 4 of a kind, and he narrowed his eyes in disappointment but cheered up slightly as he looked at Hashirama's pain-filled expression. I don't know what these ones are, but I've had them a few times. Naruto had once again managed to win the game with a straight flush. It was unreal. The amount of luck this boy had was immense. And it had just landed him over 270,000 ryo. The group groaned and handed the money over to the blonde, who was cheering loudly. More ramen for him. They cleared up and went to sit by the wooden post that stood in the field. Enko, who had cheered up, began the discussion. So, Hokage-sama said you didn't need to be tested, and by what I see, I'm inclined to agree. A snort came from Madara and Hashirama at this statement. Anywho, we're going to sort out our training schedule for the foreseeable future. Only the Gaki will actually need training as you too. She pointed at the undead duo. Are dead. To be frank. They nodded and looked over to Naruto, who looked uncomfortable with all the attention. Anko now pointed at him. You have probably no skills whatsoever. Anko continued, ignoring the shout of protest from the blonde. That is good but also bad for you good, because you have a blank slate and can choose what path you wish to go down on. Bad, it will take a lot of effort and training to get even marginally decent. Are you willing to give it your all, Gaki? Naruto's protesting face disappeared and was replaced by unwavering determination. I will give it my all and train hard. There are no shortcuts to becoming Hokage Tibeo. Anko grinned sadistically once more. This was going to be so fun. Okay. Let's start simple. Which path do you want to specialize in? Specialize? You actually want to be a balanced shinobi, but specializing can't hurt. I specialize in some things. I have many techniques that utilize my snake summons, but I have some skill in genjutsu as well. I work in the TNI department, so I have picked up some interrogation techniques. Some people have skill in a certain area and they focus on that more than the others. There are a few nuts, though, who totally dedicate their entire career training in one area. She turned her head to the distance and looked to the edge of Konoha. The team thought they were heard someone shouting about youth, but they must be hearing things. It's up to you, Gaki, what you want to do. But you don't have to choose now. Take some time to research the different areas of shinobi and pick what you want to specialize in. We can do some basic training to get you up to par while you figure out what you want to do. Naruto nodded in agreement. That seemed like the best way to do it. Hashirama put his arm around Naruto's shoulder, bringing him in for a hug. Even though Madara and I normally use big techniques that tear apart the landscape, we have other skills that we can pass on to you, basic elemental ninjutsu, some taijutsu. I could also teach you kenjutsu if you're interested. I was quite good with a sword back in the day. Madara scoffed. That thing was a sword? I thought it was something else. With the size of that thing, are you sure you weren't overcompensating for something? At least I didn't go about waving that weird-ass looking fan. Hashirama responded. It's a gun, by idiot. Who cares anyway? I do. Break it up, ladies, we have a Gaki to torta train. Anko interjected. The two stopped arguing and turned to the violet-haired Kanochi with excited looks. Well, Madara wasn't visibly excited, but you could see a little excitement in his eyes. Okay. Before we go on to all that, Gaki needs basic foundations to build upon, so. She pulled out a kunai. Dodge. Chapter 5. Again. Yes, Pant-sensei. Madara stood still, his long hair lifting slightly in the breeze, watching the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy try to regain his breath after an attempted attack. Naruto charged forward, lashing out with a roundhouse kick to Madara's midsection, but Madara simply stepped back, cleanly dodging the blow. Naruto's momentum was too much, and he nearly fell over, but he recovered and he leaped back into the battle. He lashed out with a series of kicks and punches, but all were either redirected or evaded by Madara. You may have strength, Naruto, but if you cannot move fast enough, you will never land a hit on your enemy, and they will evade you as I am doing now. Your moves are also easy to predict. I haven't even had to use my Sharingan yet. Yes, Madara-sensei. Madara kicked Naruto in the solar plexus, making Naruto cough up blood as he flew a few meters back. Again. While the two engaged in combat, Hashirama and Anko stood at the posts that stood in the clearing of Training Ground 3. They had the field for themselves for a few days as Team 7 were on a D-rank mission marathon. Don't you think this is a bit brutal? Anko asked. Normally she would be all for this, but Naruto had been getting the shit kicked out of him for the past 2 days, and she didn't think that it was helping. Naruto had improved immensely, but there was a limit to how much you beat someone down. Hashirama looked at the duo who were fighting with a critical look. He could see the openings and the slight mistakes that Naruto was making, but he had improved from the messy brawling that was his fighting style 2 months ago. Naruto doesn't learn by reading or verbal teaching, he learns using his body. This is the best type of teaching to give someone like Naruto, as every time he makes a mistake he will be open to an attack and the opening will be exploited. This kind of teaching makes his body learn to not make mistakes and to gain instincts and experience. There is slight spatial awareness training going on here as well. He must always be aware of his surroundings, or he is going to be severely injured, or he might even die. Hashirama paused and pulled out a bunch of shuriken and began throwing them at Naruto, who barely dodged. Back when Madara and I were young, we also learned like this. But this isn't the Warring States anymore, it's peacetime. Why are you pushing him so far? Anko inquired. Hashirama turned and looked at the Jonin with a sad face. It will not always be peacetime, Anko-chan. War will eventually break out once more. Even though I tried to bring peace to this war-torn world, they still reject my ideals and continue to shed blood. I tried to remain optimistic, but seeing the shinobi world as it is now, I can't help but to think it was all for naught. War is on the horizon. Anko looked at Hashirama with a frown. You really think that? Hashirama looked back to his teammates with a mourning look. I do. Anko looked back at Naruto and Madara to watch the beatdown that was going on. He needs to get his first kill soon. Hashirama began after a while, not taking his eyes away from the blonde who was dodging Madara's attacks and Hashirama's shuriken. Anko nodded. They would be going on harder missions soon and the preteen needed to be ready. Not to mention that the Chunin exams that were coming up in 4 months. I'll try and get us a C rank as soon as I can, Hashirama-senpai. Good. Anko. Your turn. Anko turned back to the field at Madara's shout. Taking in the state of the blonde, she grinned evilly, drawing out many kunai from her thigh pouch. Come on, Gaki. Dodging training. Hurry up. Ah. Go away, crazy sensei. Dodge. Madara. Madara, listen to me, please. Don't ignore me again. I have something important to tell you. HN? Hashirama sighed. Do you feel something different since we were brought back? HN. So did I, Hashirama continued, as if he was holding a real conversation. I think with the unusual way we were brought back has changed our personalities a bit. You and I have been rather excitable and immature, if you know what I mean. Carry on. So, I think that either Naruto's chakra has messed us up a bit, or that this is Kyuubi's idea of a joke. I sense the ambient clouds of chakra that are normally left behind by the fox when we got here. Kyuubi could have messed up the jutsu, so what do you think of my theory? HN. Hashirama stroked his chin thoughtfully, sending glances to Madara's thoughtful face, not that you could tell without experience with Uchiha facial expressions. How did you come to this conclusion? Madara asked. Well, I helped Tobi-chan with the Edot Tensei when he was first developing it. Something about the medical sides of things I couldn't understand most of his explanations. The senju rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. He kept referencing obscure fuinjutsu techniques that only a master would understand. Thankfully Mito-chan kept me on track. So? Yes. Well, I can't come to a guaranteed solution, but I think that when the mixed chakra of Naruto and Kyuubi has settled down a bit, we will return to our normal personalities. I need to somehow talk to Tobirama again to get an outside opinion. So? Madara looked at Hashirama, his eyes torn from the amusing sight of Naruto running in terror from their Jonin sensei. I think you may be right. No matter how far-fetched your theory may be, I still don't think that Tobirama would consult you when he was developing the technique. You can offer no help as you have no experience in fuinjutsu. Hey! Are you insulting my skills again? Yes. A cloud of gloom appeared above the brown-haired man's head as he slumped. So mean. A C rank, huh? The Sandame took a puff of his pipe as he looked at the assembled Team 11. After their 52nd D-rank Chorkov mission, the team decided to go on the long-awaited C rank. As such, they now stood in the mission assignment office in a line in front of the desk. Said desk was manned by several Chunin and the Hokage himself. Are you not wanting to take your first C rank with Team 7? Hiruzen questioned. Nope, Hokage-sama. We want to do one now. We need an induction mission. Anko stressed on the word induction, which made the Hokage's eyes widen in surprise. They wanted one of those missions off the bat. Sarutobi looked down at the scroll marked with C, a list of all the available C-rank missions. He looked down at one that would be suitable for the team. Here. This mission should be enough. The Hokage rooted through the scrolls that sat on the table beside him and drew out a plain-looking scroll before tossing it to Anko, who caught it expertly. I expect you back in a week, Team 11. Hi, Hokage-sama. That night, Hokage Monument, Minato's head. Naruto sat on Yandame's head, watching as the villagers went about their business, and the lights began to illuminate the darkening village. The setting sun sprang waves of orange, pink and purple across the sky, different shades of each color in each puffy white cloud that floated past. It was rather beautiful in Naruto's opinion. A small breeze picked up, tugging gently on blonde spikes and making them sway side to side. Naruto sighed and drew his legs into his chest, cerulean eyes peeking over his black-covered knees uncertainly as he mused upon the last few months. Life had picked up for the boy after that day in the forest. He met his first ever friends and became a genin in the same night. He couldn't now even imagine a life without the ever-cheerful Hashirama and the silent Madara. Naruto could tentatively call Anko a friend as well. Even though she was really crazy, she never glared hatefully at him or berated him for his burden or his difficulties learning. They even encouraged questions. No one had ever done that before. Then the three began teaching him the basics at first, as according to Hashirama, you will need a solid foundation before you build on your skills. Much like building a house, but you can make a house out of your Kekai Genkai without a foundation, can you not? Shut up, Anko. I'm trying to give an inspiring speech here. Anyway, What I'm trying to say is that you need to learn and master your basic skills first before progressing. A master with a Senban can defeat a Hokage that only has a big flashy jutsu that he can't even use well, so no shortcuts, okay? Of course, Naruto responded with his enthusiastic "I know there are no shortcuts to becoming Hokage. Databeo." But Naruto was having doubts about his dream. As he learned more and more about the shinobi way of life, the more discouraged he became with his aspirations of acceptance. Even with the presences of Hashirama and Madara, the villagers still glared at him with hatred in their eyes, still kicked him out of his shops, and some still denied his existence. Would he be getting the training he is now, or would he still be the dope that knew nothing? Would he? Rio, for your thoughts. Naruto turned swiftly around and looked at Madara, who stood behind him in a casual dark blue Uchiha robe, his midnight black hair swaying in the breeze. Huh! Madara smirked and sat down next to Naruto, one knee up and the other leg outstretched on the rock. One arm lay on his knee whereas the other propped him up from behind. You seem deep in thought. What is troubling you so? Naruto watched Madara suspiciously before turning back to the rapidly darkening sky, the orange and pink being replaced by deep tones of blue and purple. Nothing important, I was just remembering these past months. Madara looked searchingly at Naruto's face. Would you like to share? Sharing your worries helps sometimes, according to Hashirama Baka. Naruto looked back at the raven-haired Uchiha with narrowed eyes before he relaxed and looked up once more at the sky. I don't know where to begin. The start, perhaps? Madara said jokingly, making the blonde laugh slightly. I guess that would make sense, huh? The two sat silently for a while, just watching the village nightlife. I was thinking over these past months since we met, and the boy looked down at the deep drop that was open below him. I was doubting my dream of becoming Hokage. Madara hummed in acknowledgement, tipping his head back and watching the stars appear in the dark sky. I mean, the blonde continued. Can I really become Hokage? Even with Hashirama, Anko, and you training me, I don't feel any stronger. Heck, I can barely beat Sasuke's in a spar. And the villagers still hate me for the QB. The boy pulled on his hair roughly in his frustration. I don't know what to do anymore. Madara turned to the frustrated preteen and scuffed the back of the blonde head playfully. That's it? The big worrying revelation that's earth-shaking? Don't worry too much, child. No matter what you think of yourself, you are getting stronger. I have only seen this level of progress in Hashirama and I. As for your spars with Sasuke, of course he will beat you right now. He is stronger and has more experience with his fighting style than you have. You are currently still a novice in taijutsu, and yet you have the skill and potential to combine Hashirama's Shinrin Ken, Anko's Hibi style, and my Gaigiki Ken. It is obvious that you will do worse than others. Madara got up and held Naruto's shoulders tightly. But when you eventually grow into these styles, you will be a monster on the battlefield, nigh on impossible to defeat, as you will be unpredictable. Naruto's face still showed confusion. For example, Sasuke right now only focuses on one style. He will master this style, and can defeat many a shinobi with it, as he can use it effectively. But those who know the Uchiha fighting style can easily bypass and defeat Sasuke, as he is predictable with his one style. Are you understanding so far? The blonde nodded. So then you come along, but you haven't just focused on one style, you have incorporated the best out of Hashirama's defensive, my own attack, and the maneuverability of Anko's style. You can transition between the three effortlessly and surprise your foes with spontaneous attacks, then suddenly go on the defense. You see? Naruto looked down and thought, it did make sense. It will take time for these skills to be useful, however. Madara ruffled the messy spikes of the blonde. You just need to persevere. What about my dream of being Hokage? The way things are like now, it is unlikely that I will ever become Hokage and get the villagers' acknowledgement. They hate me too much. I remind them of their loss that day as I represent the QB. Madara thought over the genin's words a while, lost in his own memories. You know, when Hashirama and I had finished building the village and were debating on a leader, Hashirama nominated me to be the Shodai. Naruto looked at Madara wide-eyed. The raven-haired man was a Hokage candidate? But alas, things did not happen that way, and all of the village voted on Hashirama to lead us. To be honest, I was angered by those who chose Hashirama, but I calmed down after a while. After all, think of the paperwork. Being clan head was enough. Madara shivered at the mention of the undefeated enemy. The former leader of the Uchiha clan stood up and looked over the dark village. A word of advice for you, Naruto. It isn't that if you become Hokage everyone will acknowledge you, it's the ones who are acknowledged that can become Hokage. Madara turned away, walking off the edge of the monument. Think on that. He leaped off the head of the yondaime, disappearing mid-fall. Naruto looked up at the inky black sky. Hokage? Huh. So where are we going? I don't know. Ask Anko, she has the mission scroll. Don't be like that, Madara. Naruto-chan only asked a question. HN. Not you too, Naruto-chan. Madara, stop making Naruto like you. He is going to be my double, not yours. HN. Ak. Fuck you all. Ak AGH. Help me. Thud. Language Hashirama-senpai. Do I have to remind you that we are on a mission? You need to tone down the antics while we're out of the village. Stop crashing into trees while you're at it. Well, I shall annoy you all later then. So where are we going then? The team were leaping through the trees at a moderately fast pace, heading northwest towards the border. I believe it was Tekagaoka Town we were heading for, Anko replied. And what are we going to do in Tekagaoka Town exactly? Naruto asked. Anko looked back at the blonde who was in the middle of their formation. Her normally sadistically happy look dulled. Bandit extermination. It would normally be overkill for this team, but this mission is mostly about you getting your first kill. We will not be interfering. Naruto almost fell off the branch he just landed on when Anko answered he had to kill someone. Anko's right, Naruto. You need to understand that shinobi kill all the time. Whether it be bandits, rogue ninjas, nobles, daimyos, or innocent civilians, ninja kill for money. While it isn't all that we do, assassinations and exterminations are regularly requested. Madara said. Naruto was still trying to get his head around the concept. But killing is wrong. Yes, it's wrong, but we still do it. It has been like this for a very long time. I have tried to change the way of shinobi, but I have failed. There will always be death and war wherever you go, anytime, any place. Accept this, Naruto, or stop being a shinobi. Hashirama looked at Naruto sadly. He didn't want to be so harsh when breaking the truth to the boy, but it was necessary for Naruto to learn. Naruto looked down to the underbrush below and thought about what he had just been told. There it is. It was late in the evening when Team 11 reached the bandit camp. They were currently standing high up in the trees just at the edge of a wide clearing. In the clearing was a relatively medium-sized camp filled with men. Naruto's keen eyes could also see the forms of emaciated females, ranging from young teenagers and older women being dragged about by the men, all in a state of undress. You see, Naruto, Anko's voice startled him from behind. Bandits are a disgrace to humanity. They deserve to be killed. They are violating these women in the most vile way possible. Anko's voice was trembling in rage, her ki rolling off her in waves. Naruto shivered at the feeling. But he steeled his nerves. He had a job to be doing. And he knew just how to do it. Naruto crept silently through the camp. It was very late at night, and all of the bandits had retired to their living spaces. It just made it easier for Naruto to kill them. 20 Kage Bunshin accompanied him, all spread out in order to cover more ground. The real Naruto was currently heading towards the biggest tent in the camp. He had reckoned that this was where the leader slept. He approached the tent as silent as he could. Intel had stated that the leader of this bandit ring was a shinobi from another village, although they were unaware of the exact village the guy originated from. Naruto pushed open the flaps to the tent and sneaked inside. He almost blew his cover by rushing back out. The scene inside made him want to vomit in disgust. Previously, he approached the tent as silent as he could. Intel had stated that the leader of this bandit ring was a shinobi from another village, although they were unaware of the exact village the guy originated from. Naruto pushed open the flaps to the tent and sneaked inside. He almost blew his cover by rushing back out. The scene inside made him want to vomit in disgust. So much death. The sheer amount was nauseating, and the overwhelming stench of blood hit his nose first, followed by a moldy rot smell. It made him want to vomit. Bodies were littered across the dirt floor, many in various states of dying or decay. Crimson blood was pooling in large puddles, some staining the mud a dark red, almost black color. Naruto looked up to the back of the tent and saw the 3 shinobi that sat there. Well, only one of them were sitting down, the other 2 stood behind the throne-like chair that the unknown shinobi was lounging across. Uzumaki Naruto? Naruto's head whipped round at the call of his name, looking more closely at the man in the throne. The man had brown hair. It fell down to broad shoulders like a curtain, all straight like the features of the man's face were commonplace, dark brown eyes and a sharp face, but forgettable as soon as you turned away. He was clothed in a strange garb, a tight red undershirt with a thick brown flak jacket over the top. He wore dark brown ANBU cargo pants and commonplace black shinobi sandals. The 2 that stood to the back of the sneering man wore almost identical clothing. HN. The man sat up straight, looking intently at Naruto and searching the preteen's face curiously. To what do I owe the honor, Uzumaki? The man was fairly sarcastic but was snarling near the end. Naruto drew up his courage and stepped forward, but stopped as he heard his foot clicking on a piece of metal. Looking down, he was horrified to see a blood-covered Konoha Hittite. Looking up at the man again, narrowing his blue eyes at the smirking face of his enemy. His enemy with an unmarred IWA Hittite. A legal shinobi. Not a nukenin, but an actually employed ninja. The thought made him want to vomit once more. Naruto stayed silent, fear mixed in with the disgust, and stared at the man determinedly. Staying silent, are we? The man drawled, leaning back into his relaxed lounge. Well, it is of no matter now, you're going to die today anyway. Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration and anger, barely holding back on outright lashing out at the man. Instead, he asked the question he's had floating about since the brown-haired man started talking. How do you know who I am? Naruto demanded, his voice holding confidence that he didn't think he really had. The man chuckled, closing his eyes and smirking that annoying smirk of his. Oh? You don't know that you're practically famous across the nations. Summoning Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama is no mere parlor trick that can be swept under the rug, child. The man looked at Naruto condescendingly. Are you truly naive enough to believe that you would not gain attention after that? Naruto looked down in shame for a few seconds till he got back to his senses and glared at the man hatefully. Since you already know who I am, is it not customary to tell me your own name? Spending time with Madara was doing wonders for Naruto's vocabulary and manners. I suppose so. Very well. Iwa no Senmetsu, Mizugo Chie, at your service. Chie bowed mockingly, his face turned up into a smug sneer. Naruto's eyes widened at the name, stepping back cautiously as Chie's companions stepped forward. But the Hitai Nukenin slashed their headbands. Chie laughed uproariously, hitting the wood of his chair as he shook in amusement. After a few moments he stopped and looked back at Naruto, brown eyes wide in insanity. You really think that I, Mizugo Chie, one of the most infamous Nukenin to ever leave Iwa, would compromise my identity and anonymity by stupidly slashing my Hittite for the world to see my status as a Nukenin? I was called the genius of my clan for a reason, you know. I was the best of all those pathetic ingrates, before I went and massacred them all. Chie's brown eyes were glittering in amused insanity. No one knew what I looked like, not even the Tsuchikage. He continued, no one would expect a normal-looking guy like me, wearing the normal Iwa uniform and a perfect Hittite. Anyone who saw us would see just your run-of-the-mill Iwa jonin. Any crimes or such that I would do, would be traced back to Iwa. That wretched village, no blame on myself. The perfect plan. You're mad. Naruto shouted at Chie, drawing his kunai in self-defense as the two cohorts stepped forward, one drawing a sword. Mad? Yes, I suppose I am mad. Being a genocidal maniac would do that to you. Chie looked down at the variety of bodies that sat at his feet. Ranging from civilians to Iwa nin, Konoha nin heck, even a few Kiri shinobi and their ninja were all recalled back for their civil war not that long ago. Enough talk. Hiretsu, Saki, kill the brat. Hi Taicho. The two replied in unison. They charged at Naruto with weapons drawn, a kunai and wakizashi respectively. Naruto ched and settled down into Madara's Gaigiki Ken. It was the personal style of Madara, who had developed it integrating many styles including the basic Uchiha one that all Uchiha work off of when they make their own style. However, Madara had developed it to work without the Sharingan. Naruto's kunai met Giretsu's, sparks and the clash of metal coming from the harsh impact. Naruto quickly had to duck down and roll out of the way, else his head would be rolling, courtesy of the wakizashi. It was a whirlwind of cuts and dodges after that, the two Iwa ninja doing most of the cutting and Naruto doing most of the dodging. Naruto stepped back to dodge a swipe of the sword, leaning back just enough to avoid the blade hitting his chest, but he leaned back too far and stumbled over a body on the floor. Crashing down heavily over a body, getting covered in blood in the process. Naruto looked up fearfully as the wakizashi descended down towards his face. It was coming quickly, too quick. Am I going to die? He asked himself fearfully, watching the silver blade get closer. No, the blade slowed down, allowing him to roll over and avoid the blade. He lay panting on the ground for a moment before having to move again, watching the path of the kunai that would have landed between his eyes had he not moved. He wasn't fast enough to avoid it cutting a line right across his face though. Tch, Chie cursed. Naruto got back up quickly, feeling a gush of blood run down his face. He was quickly overwhelmed by the Iwa nin though, having no chance to catch his breath. Come on, does Madara, Hashirama or Anko know about this? Naruto dodged under a kunai swipe and threw a few shuriken at Giretsu. Shit! They weren't going to interfere, Anko said crap. Naruto managed to leg sweep Saki and managed to get some space. Although he had to balance on the bodies of some Konoha shinobi to do so. Tiger ram monkey boar horse tiger, let's hope this works. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Naruto's luck and about an eighth of his chakra held out as a huge ball of fire roared out of his mouth. The tent began burning first, the flammable fabric being burned through easily. Then the furniture that was dotted about the former tent, the lightwood cracking and popping as it collapsed. Many bodies were incinerated the closer they were to the ball of mass destruction. Screams of pain ran through the air as the three living bodies were subjected to at least third, maybe fourth degree burns. Naruto was panting heavily as a massive chunk of his chakra was quickly used up by the Gokakyu. Soon enough, Naruto was coughing as the smoke was inhaled into his lungs. Suddenly his head erupted in pain, the memories of the 20 Kage Bunshin killing all the bandits in the camp coming into his head all at once. Aya! Naruto screamed, holding his head and trying to rip out his hair as the images of so much death ripped through his head. Naruto! You okay? Come on, Naruto, speak to me. Who was that? Hashirama? Naruto! It's okay, Naruto. Calm down. No! It wasn't Hashirama, was it? It was Chie. Chie was going to kill him. He had to kill Chie first. Did he have a kunai? Yes. Here it is. Now. Naruto was looking into eyes. Eyes the color of blood, eyes with black tomo swirling inside. The eyes were wide in surprise, slight fear, and a small sliver of hope. Why were they fearful? Hands were holding his shoulders firmly, stopping him from moving and taking his kunai away. They took the kunai away. He had to kill Chie. Why would they take the kunai away? Naruto. The voice was soft, rumbling deep. They're all dead. You don't have to worry anymore. Dead? Chie was dead? But he was alive, the Gokakyu? Did he kill Chie already? Naruto collapsed down on his knees, the hands on his shoulders stopping him from seriously hurting himself even more. Who was that in front of him? Red, black, pale who? Madara? The raven-haired man was kneeling in front of him, looking intently upon his face. What was so interesting about his face? Madara, Naruto stuttered, still shaky from today. What he was stopped by a finger over his lips, and another hand hovering over his eye. Shh, stay quiet, Naruto-kun. When was Madara's voice so gentle, so caring? Hashirama walked over, visible from the corner of his eyes. Hashirama looked weird as well. What the hell was going on? His questioning look was noticed by Madara, who smirked a little. Sharingan. Naruto-kun, you have the Sharingan. Would you stop doing that, Gaki? You're freaking everyone in this place out. But it's so weird. It looks strange on my face. At least put the kunai away, Naruto-kun. Having a weapon out in a restaurant gives a bad image. Use a mirror or something. How am I supposed to see how it looks though? I don't have a mirror, those are for civilians and worthless, bitcha fangirls that have no business being kunoichi and should jump off the nearest cliff. Madara. Don't be filling his head with lies. Team 11 were sitting in a restaurant in Tekagaoka, 3 days after the mission. They had been resting red as Naruto was resting before heading back out to Konoha. Naruto was still shaken after that day. After all, massacring an entire camp of bandits isn't good for the mental health. Madara had taken to talking to Naruto at night, telling him that he should not feel shame but accept that he killed all those people. But never enjoy it. To enjoy it makes you worse than those you are killing. But I still don't understand though. Naruto played with his chopsticks, waiting for his yakiniku. They had no ramen. I thought that all Nukenin slashed their Hittite when they betrayed the village? But that Chie guy, he didn't. Saying that the others were idiots for showing to everyone they met that they were a Nukenin. Enko finished eating a stick of dango that she had pulled out of nowhere. You can't always believe what you see, Gaki. She reached for another stick but Hashirama slapped her wrist, scolding her for eating too much and not having room for dinner. The mask disappeared and the Hittite was pulled back onto her forehead. Everyone at the table just stared at the purple-haired kunoichi before bursting into laughter, startling a few people nearby. Madara recovered first, looking at Enko curiously. Where did you get the mask? You can't have them lying about everywhere, can you? His voice was incredulous. Enko blushed for a second before turning and mumbling to herself. What's that? Couldn't hear you. Hashirama asked, leaning close enough to be in Enko's face. Enko glared at Hashirama and murmured again. Hashirama looked at Enko's straight face for a minute before leaning back into his chair, a grin trying to break itself onto his face, only forceful keeping it back. He didn't last long. It began as a chuckle, before deepening into a laugh, then a full-blown howl. His whole body shaking from the force of his laughter. In fact, the senju's laughter was so forceful that he fell off his chair and began rolling on the floor, clutching his stomach. Madara facepalmed at the stupidity that his free enemy, hated enemy, with capitals, was showing, and began shuffling closer to Naruto, who sat the furthest from Hashirama. What was that all about? The Uchiha asked Enko, who was snickering herself. Oh? All I said that I got it when I had sex with Kakashi before he left on his missions. She said it so nonchalantly that Madara actually face planted onto the table. Enko looked at Madara incredulously before collapsing in a fit of laughter, joining Hashirama on the floor. Naruto just looked at everyone confused, before turning to the groaning Madara, who just sat back up. What sex? Hashirama, who had begun to get back up onto his seat, collapsed again and laughed once more, although it was not for long. The brunette got back up, chest heaving, and sat down heavily. Well, that's a deep subject, Hashi-senpai. The adults at the table just looked at each other after Anko cut in. Madara just dropped his head, a small snicker escaping his lips. Hashirama laughed again, a hand up wiping the tears formed from the excessive laughter. Anko smirked. So kid, sexist, she cut off when she caught on to what she said. The violet-haired Kunoichi stared forward blankly for a few seconds before excusing herself. I'm going to buy us a drink. Sake, anyone? After the affirmative responses, she walked off to the bar, a wide grin on her face. Naruto looked imploringly at Hashirama, genuinely curious. Hashirama took a deep breath, to calm his shaking. The laughter was still affecting him. His face became a little lighter, an excited gleam in his eye. Sex is the act of procreation. An extremely complex physical, emotional, physiological, and spiritual act in which two or more humans pleasure each other with their bodies, specifically, their genitals. Also useful for reproduction when practiced between a male and a female. Humans, however, are the only species who have devoted so much study to the subject, especially on the non-physical aspects. Hashirama, shut up and go to Anko. But. Go. Now. Madara's voice was stern and allowed no arguments. Hashirama slumped and walked away, clouds of depressive feelings emanating from the Senju in waves. Madara shook his head in exasperation, and looked back to Naruto, who just looked even more confused. Hashirama Baka sometimes is too complicated when it comes to medical stuff like this. Let's see if I can do a better job. Now you know that boys and men like us have A and girls and women have a hole called A, yes? Well, sex is when a man puts his into a woman's and releases this stuff called its white, and when it reaches a woman's egg, which is inside the woman, it fertilizes the egg, and after 9 months a baby will be born. Do you understand? Madara was straight-faced throughout the entire explanation, not a laugh to be found. Naruto nodded again. It was simple. Doesn't it hurt though? For the girl? He asked. If you do it wrong, yes, it will hurt for the girl. But if sex is done right, it is normally really nice feeling. Really nice. Don't ever do it without the girl saying it's okay though. That's called rape, and that's illegal. Madara was really serious when he was talking about the last part, a small scowl and a glare on his face. Naruto gulped. Yes, sensei. Why were Anko-sensei and Hashi-sensei laughing about Anko having sex with Kakashi though? Because they're idiots. Naruto made a O of realization. Before closing his mouth and looking down at the table, a shameful look on his face. I didn't know sex was that. I thought it was some boring thing. It sounded boring in class and I skipped that day, that's why I don't know. A hand ruffling his hair made him look up and see Madara's soft smile. It is of no matter now. The past is the past. Naruto smiled back and watched as Anko and Hashirama came back, maneuvering deftly around the crowds, trays of food in hand. Ta-da! Food! They sat down and tucked in, foregoing conversation for filling their stomachs. Soon the food was gone and the bill was paid, marking their exit from the busy restaurant, receiving farewell waves from the friendly staff. It was dark outside, only the dim street lamps and the shine of the moon to see by. Madara! Anko shouted, a mischievous look in her eye. HN? We've heard about Hashi with Mito, myself with Kakashi, and Naruto's non-existent one. What about you? Did you have a sex life? You're one of those asexual people, aren't you? Madara looked at Anko with an eyebrow raised, ignoring Hashirama's giggling. Yes. I did, for a matter of fact. Oh. Who? Who? Hashirama asked excitedly, his brown eyes matching Anko's for childishness. Madara crossed his arms and huffed, looking up at the full moon. I don't know who she was. It was a one-night stand. Blonde, blue eyes. Silence met his statement. One-night stand? Why you? It was the middle of the night, everyone was sleeping. All but one. Madara lay on the roof of their hotel, his back against the rough wood of the roof. He watched as the clouds drifted by, covering and uncovering the full shining moon. His eye in Mangekyo was revealed for the world to see, the peculiar black patterns swirling slowly as he mused upon recent events. He was going soft. His affection for Naruto was hindering his judgment and clouding rational decisions. He couldn't help it though. The boy was lost in this broken world, with no one to guide him, no one to show him the ways of the shinobi, and just normal stuff. He didn't even know about sex, for fuck's sake. How ignorant and idiotic can Konoha be, to not notice the neglect evident in the boy? The darkness festering inside. It was just going to get worse, with the emotional roller coaster that Sharingan is. Sharingan. Yet another problem. How did the boy have it? He was a Uzumaki Namikaze. Not a Uchiha. Not anywhere close to being related to any Uchiha. Perhaps his father Yandame, a secret anyone could discover with enough sense, and a picture of the two. They were basically clones of each other. You could see it with a glance that they were related in some way. Some SS class secret. Yandame. He had blonde hair, blue eyes. No, it can't be. Madara flicked through his memories frantically. From after his fake death and before his death in the mountain's graveyard. The girl. It was just to release some frustration, after spending ages wandering. She had a child from that? Fuck. Madara laughed bitterly. His son. He had a son. A Hokage son. His son was dead. He had a grandson. Who was sleeping downstairs. Who was the Kyubi Jinchuriki? Suki no Meikikaku. The Moon Eye Plan, Mugen Tsukuyumi. It all relies on the Biju. He would become the Jubi Jinchuriki and start the Mugen Tsukuyumi, cast the world into a genjutsu. Naruto would die when the Kyubi was extracted. The last of his line, extinguished. World peace or Naruto? When was this decision so hard? Madara started humming, thoughts speeding fast through his mind. Plans, situations, outcomes, decisions, people. Repeat. Decisions. What to do? Aha. What about that? Perfect. Madara smirked. That would work. A stop before we go home though, I need some things. When did I start calling Konoha home? Kanahagaku no Sato, Hokage Tower, 3 days later. Anything else, Team 11? The Sandai asked, his hat shadowing his face and tendrils of smoke rising from his lit pipe. They had just finished the debrief for the Tekagaoka mission. All in Team 11 were tired. 3 days of continuous travel had worn Enko and Naruto out. The others were Edot Tensei bodies. They don't tire. The Hokage's eyes narrowed as he read down, a small frown forming on wrinkled lips. Hiruzen looked up at Madara with a serious look in his eyes. Killer intent leaking out faintly. Are you sure about this, Madara? Once this goes through, you can't take it back. Madara merely nodded, not at all fazed by the KI. He crossed his arms in his signature pose, the new addition of the gunbai on his back shifting. Very well. The Hokage sighed tiredly. It has my approval. Hiruzen signed the bottom of the page, and stamping it with the Hokage's seal. An ANBU appeared at his shoulder. Take this to the archives. Run it through and update the systems. The bird-masked ANBU nodded and disappeared. The Hokage sighed and leaned back on his comfy swirled chair, taking a deep draw of his pipe. Dismissed. Hi. The team left. Hiruzen looked back at his antique Mokuton-grown desk and groaned. Damn paperwork. What was that about, Madara? Hashirama asked as soon as they were out the tower. Madara walked quicker, completely ignoring Hashirama. Fine, don't answer. Come on, Enko-chan, let's go find and psychologically torture your boyfriend. Hashirama went in the opposite direction, dragging a cheery Enko with him. Madara glanced briefly in their direction before looking back at Naruto, who was looking at the duo, who quickly disappeared. Come, Naruto. His demand was irrefutable, but soft at the same time. They quickly ascended to the rooftops, where travel was quicker and not as congested as the civilian-loaded streets. They quickly reached the Uchiha compound. Where Sasuke lived, Naruto threw questioning glances at Madara but got no response from the long-haired man, who continued through the compound. Hey, look! There's Sasuke! They entered a shrine-like place, taking their sandals off as they went. It looked like your typical shrine, but there were obvious Uchiha elements to it. The red and white fans covered every wall. Every wall. Madara kneeled down at the far back right, feeling about on the edges of the tatami mats for something. Seventh from the far right. Madara murmured, lifting up a mat to reveal a dark staircase. After you? Naruto peered cautiously down the shadowy depths and carefully stepped down, unconsciously activating his one-tomo Sharingan to see better. Madara closed the tunnel behind them, casting the already shadowy tunnel into complete darkness. Where are we going, Madara? Naruto asked, still descending steps. Wait and see, was the only reply. The stairs soon leveled out, opening into a wide open space. They couldn't see much as it was pitch black, but the echoes of their footsteps gave a general idea of the size of the room. It was musty. Old rice paper and candle wax were the prevalent smells, but there was smoky ash and faint damp as well. The room was lit up suddenly, torches flaring to life along the walls. The most attention-grabbing part of the room was the stone tablet that stood at the back. It was a fairly large stone, covered in some sort of writing. He couldn't get a good look at it before Madara drew his attention again. By gently placing a sword in his hands. It was a beautiful katana. Naruto could already see that from the saya sheath. It wasn't very ornate, but the master craftsmanship was evident from the quality. The tsuba guard was square and plain, only an engraved Uchiha fan decorated the surface. The tsuka handle was covered in soft samigawa, ray/shark skin, that was wrapped in a pattern that made diamonds run up the length of the tsuka. It was made using Sashukitai, Madara said softly, taking hold of the sword and drawing it slightly, and showing the blade. One of the last of Muramesa's work before he died. The 7 swordsmen of Kiri also got their blades made by him. Only 8 swords he made for us shinobi. That's all he would give. The blade was beautiful, even more so than the saya. There was a black strip near the top which looked like it went down the entire length of the blade. There was a darker steel afterwards, then a wavy line of brighter steel. Naruto knew that there were specific terms for these parts of the blade, but he didn't know what they were. I'm giving it to you. Naruto looked up at Madara incredulously. Surely such a beautiful katana would be better in the hands of someone else, someone who knew how to use it. No questions. Madara resheathed the sword and pushed it back towards Naruto. It is a gift. My brother Izuna would have wanted you to have it. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows and looked frustratedly at Madara. Will he ever get to the point? After all, you are my grandson. Previously. No questions. Madara resheathed the sword and pushed it back towards Naruto. It is a gift. My brother Izuna would have wanted you to have it. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows and looked frustratedly at Madara. Will he ever get to the point? After all, you are my grandson. Naruto's brain just blanked at these words. It took him a few moments to reboot and actually respond to Madara. Eh? Came Naruto's intelligent reply. Madara just rolled his eyes and smirked slightly. As I said, you are my grandson. Your father was my son. Madara held up his hand to stop Naruto, who looked like he was about to speak. No, I didn't know before now. It was on the Tekigauka mission that I figured it out. I can't tell you who your father is just now. You can't know just now. Naruto slumped in disappointment but didn't protest. The way that Madara spoke implied that he would know sometime soon. What was that folder about anyway? You wouldn't say anything back at the Hokage tower. Madara looked up at Naruto's face before turning and walking to the back of the room, left of the mysterious tablet. He reached up and placed his hand flat against the wall, murmuring something under his breath. Something clicked, and a square of wall swung outwards. The inside was shielded from view by the wall/door, so Naruto couldn't see what was inside. He watched as Madara lifted out a large scroll, which he laid down on the tatami floor. It was a plain-looking scroll about as long as his entire arm with Uchiha fans decorating the cap ends. Madara unrolled it carefully, the old rice paper crinkling as it was moved. Madara got halfway through the scroll before he stopped, having reached some text. Madara waved Naruto over, going back to reading the fancy kana. Curious, Naruto knelt down next to Madara, watching as the Uchiha's hand trailed over hundreds of names. What is this? He asked softly. Madara hummed for a second, reaching out and unraveling more scroll. It's a family tree. All the Uchiha that go through our clan are marked down, under their parents and grandparents. Using this, we can trace a few hundred years back long before the hidden villages. See here? Madara pointed to a point a little far back from the end, a point where the names suddenly ended. The whole scroll after that point was blank, the other names not interceding the white space caused. That's my line. The main branch, the rest are all side branches. It ends here as it wasn't recorded that me, or any of my siblings had any children. They had all died long before I did. Before the villages even. Madara's voice was on the verge of trembling, his hand hovering on the name of one of his siblings. Uchiha Izuna D. Naruto looked at Madara with a frown, his blue eyes darkening in sadness. He looked back at Izuna's name, and his frown grew. Izuna, you called Sasuke Izuna? At the team meeting after academy graduation. Did Izuna look a lot like Sasuke? Madara turned to Naruto and looked him in the eye, Sharingan flaring to life, Tomo spinning lazily around the ring. Naruto could feel something pushing behind his eyes. It was a strange sensation, Naruto thought. He looked up to see a young man, looking like a much older Sasuke. Only a few differences separated the two. Izuna long hair drawn back into a thin ponytail, the duck but was still there, only a little downtrodden, and the face looked a little different. This is Izuna. Izuna smiled warmly at Madara, the grin lighting up his stoic face. He waved at Naruto before flickering out of existence. No trace of him ever being there. Naruto looked at the spot where Izuna just disappeared from for a moment before looking at Madara in awe. How did you do that? The former leader of the Uchiha clan only smirked. Genjutsu, the use of illusions. One of the 3 main shinobi arts. Amazing. Naruto breathed. Could I do something like that someday? The prospect sounded exciting. Madara only laughed. You need to get your chakra control up to scratch first, Naruto-kun. You will overpower and fail any illusion at this point. Perhaps in a few years, HM? Madara only shook his head at Naruto's antics. At least he wasn't as bad as Hashirama. Kami, the mere thought of it was giving him shivers. Anyway, back to business. Madara took the calligraphy kit from beside him and began preparing some ink methodically. His movements smooth from years of practice. Naruto just watched. It was relaxing to watch even if it was pretty boring. Once Madara was finished, the Uchiha pulled the scroll closer to him, his hand hovering over his own name. He looked conflicted for a second before narrowing his eyes, an internal battle won. He drew a perfect straight line down from his own name, writing a few characters below the end point. Naruto leaned forward, looking curiously at Madara's writing. His eyes widened in shock once the text registered in his mind. Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto looked at Madara incredulously. W.A. The file in the Hokage office? Madara smirked, his Sharingan eyes swirling. Adoption papers. And then he goes, crosses his arms, and says I don't know who she was. It was a one-night stand. Who would ever imagine Uchiha Madara having a sex life? Anko laughed uproariously, taking a swig of the jar of sake being held precariously in her hand. Everyone in their part of the bar laughed, all knowing of the Uchiha's apparent clan-wide asexualness. It was the weekly unofficial Jonin meeting, where all the Jonin and Jonin sensei met up and shared missions, team reports, and just some Jonin exclusive gossip. The Jonin's gossip ring was the main source of envy among the Chunin and Genin, though it couldn't match up to the NBU. None were better than theirs, being exclusive to most of the village's secret info did have some benefits, although seldom shared. Some Jonin, however, had a few people in the NBU that they were friendly off-duty with, allowing them to get some tidbits of the good stuff. A lot of info came from Kakashi, a former NBU captain who currently was trying to get a feel of Anko's breasts. His hand in an opportune position, slung over the torture mistress' shoulder. The Jonin were joined by Hashirama today, who had tagged along after they found Kakashi lazing about and reading his Aika. Hashirama and Anko were regaling them of funny stories from their missions. He had just reached the recent events of Tekigaoka. Ah, Anko sighed contentedly, moving to sit in Kakashi's lap and leaning back, resting her head on the silver-haired man's shoulder. So proud of my little Gaki. She started, once the laughter had stopped. Took down a B-rank and 2 C-rank nuke-neens all by his lonesomes. She wiped a tear from her eye. They grow up so fast. Really? Kakashi drawled, although he sounded bored, you could tell he was impressed. How did he do it? It was Hashirama that answered. Overpowered Katon. The thing took out the main tent, 3 other tents, and scorched 30 feet of the ground around him black. Nearly took himself out in the process. Baka. Kakashi hummed and played with his fingers that lay on Anko's thighs. At least your team is doing good. Mine are a nightmare. Uchiha? Hashirama asked, sympathy in his voice. The kid won't work with the team, always going off and doing things himself. Sai is okay, but I think he's spying on Sasuke-kun for Danzo. That's something the hawk would do. Then Sakura. Kakashi's Sai was tired and irritated. If she continues on like this, I'm probably going to make an appeal to take her off the program, civilians be damned. Still a fangirl? Anko asked. Kakashi snorted, giving all the answer they needed. Aren't the Chunin exams coming up soon though? Inquired Kurenai. You'll need a 3-man team to enter, kicking Sakura out won't do you any good at this point. Kakashi sighed, running his hand through gravity-defying hair. Well, I know that Naruto doesn't have a childish crush on Sakura anymore, Hashirama stated, taking a sip of his sake. You should have heard what he said about fangirls after the bandit mission. What was it again, Anko? It was when I asked him to put his kunai away. Anko furrowed her brows, recalling that exact conversation. Her face lit up in realization, before she started giggling. I believe it was Maha. I don't have a mirror, those are for civilians and worthless, bitchy fangirls that have no business being kunoichi and should jump off the nearest cliff. The nearby shinobi and kunoichi chuckled, it was the opinion of most serious ninja. Seriously? Naruto said that? Asuma asked incredulously, taking a draw of his cigarette. Hashirama and Anko sighed dejectedly, both pouting at the unfairness. Anko turned round on Kakashi's lap, straddling the Hataki's legs as she peered closely into Kakashi's face. Speaking about Madara. What was the whole secret file thing that he was giving to the Hokage? Did you even find out before he marched off? Hashirama slumped. No. He just ignored me. Walked off with Naruto-chan. Talking about Madara? You haven't heard the news then. Kakashi looked up from his book, peering around Anko's body that was cuddling into him. Anko and Hashirama cheered up instantly, bright eyes looking at Kakashi inquisitively. What news? He's went and adopted Naruto-kun as his son. Don't see why though, Naruto isn't an Uchiha. Pause. Seriously? Madara? Hashirama stormed off out the bar, flinging the Ryo for his drink on the table as he went. He is an Uchiha, Anko said softly, so quiet that only Kakashi could hear her. Awakened the Sharingan after he nearly died. Seriously? Kakashi murmured back. Kami, the world's going to shit these days. Next thing you know, guy won't be wearing green spandex. Anko snorted. Be careful what you wish for. Really? Kakashi wiggled his eyebrow, suggestively. Will my wishes come true? Anko laughed and laid a teasing kiss on Kakashi's mask. We'll see. So how's this going to work between us? Do we stay as normal, or do I call you Ota-san or Shishiyu or? Ota-san will do. Okay, Ota-san? Naruto quite liked the sound of the word on his lips. It'll take a while to get used to anyway. They had left the Naka shrine a while back and were now wandering the grounds, enjoying the peaceful warm day. Madara turned to Naruto, who was still carrying his sword in his hands awkwardly. Here. He motioned for Naruto to hand over the katana. Madara took it and held the sword comfortably, his hand 3/4 up the sheath. How are you liking the armor? At the mention of the accursed garment, Naruto tapped lightly on the breastplate, the metal ringing flatly. I don't really feel comfortable moving about in this. It's really heavy and I'd like to be more of a quick person than a heavy hitter. Madara only nodded. It was a plausible explanation. Let's get that off you then. We can find something else to wear. Perhaps we can come back to armor when you're older. They walked quickly to Madara's house, a quiet little place far from many of the other houses. Madara helped Naruto out of the crimson samurai-styled armor, the metal making soft clunks when it hit the floor. Madara stepped back and looked at Naruto a second, eyes flicking up and down his body. Naruto had grown a lot in the past months, an inch or two taller, broader shoulders and a fine amount of muscle. Carrying about heavy armor all the time was great for muscle development, gave him more of a combat-ready look. Naruto had liked it when he saw himself in the mirror each morning. Madara turned and walked away through the house, his steps confident through the heavy shadows that were cast from lack of light. Naruto looked after him for a moment before turning back to the pile of armor on the floor. He sighed in resignation. A tiring task ahead indeed. Slowly but surely, Naruto managed to move the armor into a neat pile in the corner of the room, out of the way so no one tripped up or anything. Madara walked back into the room, carrying something in his hands. He held it out to Naruto, who took it carefully. Full body mesh armor lay on the top, separated into the torso part and the leg part. Then, there was a shirt, a very long shirt. Holding it up, Naruto could see that it would reach to just under his knees. There was a slit up to the waist for leg movement though. It had the classic Uchiha high collar and long baggy sleeves. It looked rather nice, to be honest. Anything was better than the armor. Try it on. It was easy to get on, compared to the complicated process of the armor. The mesh armor he just slipped on like normal clothes, although his toes kept getting caught in the small gaps spread evenly through the moderately tight weave. He kept his pants from the heavy armor, rewinding the bandages around his shins. The shirt had a small, almost imperceptible seam on the front, allowing it to be opened like a kimono and closed again easily, looking like it was just a normal shirt. He pulled the sleeves straight, observing as the wide cuffs draped over his hands, allowing opportunity to hide what he was doing with them. So? Madara asked, standing in the doorway. He handed Naruto a harness for his sword, which he shrugged on carefully. It allowed his sword to hang diagonally down his back, the end point of the sword just reaching past his hip. Naruto smiled. It feels really good to get out the armor. He glared at the pile of metal sitting innocently in the corner. I don't see how you can wear it all the time. Madara chuckled deeply. I've been wearing armor like that since I was a child. You get used to it. They sat in silence for a moment, just listening to the sounds of nature from the outside, neither wanting to break the companionable quiet. It was Naruto who finally spoke. Hey Ota-san. Why does Sasuke have the Uchiha fan on his clothes while I don't? He had noticed when he picked the shirt up to put it on. Madara blinked, surprised at the question. Well, to be able to wear the crest you need to master the Gokaku first. But I can already do the Gokaku. Remember the Tekigauka mission, I killed them with it. Madara shook his head. No, you can do the jutsu but you haven't mastered it. Come, let us practice by the river. Madara stood up straight and stretched, his armor clinking as it was moved. The Uchiha then just walked out the back door, nary a prompt to tell Naruto to follow. Just expectation. Naruto hurried out the door after Madara, pulling his sandals on haphazardly as he rushed. Walking quickly through the grass, they soon reached a river that had a pier sticking out from the bank. Nothing special. Madara already stood at the end, standing in his familiar crossed-armed stance. A blank face, devoid of emotions, gazed across the river, seemingly lost in thought. Naruto came up to stand next to the raven-haired man. He remained silent, not willing to interrupt Madara from his thoughts. Instead he ran through the hand seals for the Gokaku, getting used to the feel and trying to build up his speed. Tiger ram monkey boar horse tiger. Again and again, faster. He needed to be faster. Madara snapped out of his thoughts, although not visibly, only the glazed look that disappeared from his eyes gave indication to the Uchiha's return to the land of reality. The man watched as Naruto sped through hand seals, growing faster and faster with each repetition. Naruto suddenly stopped and began to gather chakra, his blue eyes narrowing in determination. Tiger ram monkey boar horse tiger. Katon, Gokaku no jutsu. Naruto shouted, releasing his chakra all at once. So much chakra was wasted, Madara sensed. The Uchiha Uzumaki had little control over his incredibly large reserves. He would have to teach the boy water walking and waterfall walking soon. Accuracy and perfection was paramount. The fireball was pitifully small, only the size of his closed fist. Naruto began coughing harshly. He probably didn't coat his lungs and throat with chakra, but there it is, the vaunted healing unique to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Although the wind nature he has is curious. Maybe I can introduce the Gumbai to him? Obito was almost useless with it last time I checked. Naruto's throat was as good as new 10 seconds later. His blue eyes glinting with increased determination, a wide grin at the challenge. Traits he had gained from his suffering in life, Madara observed. Similar to his own. Over and over again Naruto shot off the Gokaku. Surprising Madara with his tenacity to master the jutsu, it seemed that Naruto wanted to master the Gokaku within the day. It was an impossible task. Well, I'll be damned, he did it. It wasn't a day. But Naruto mastered it within 3. It was unheard of. The blonde had trained non-stop, from morning to evening. He had only stopped to rest and eat because Madara had forced him, lest he kill himself from chakra exhaustion. Naruto's chakra recovery rate still astounded him. Depleted from all chakra at night, to full reserves by the morning. Not to sound petulant, but it just wasn't fair. Madara had to close all 3 Uchiha into the compound for those 3 days. Hashirama had been banging at the gates an hour after they had started training. Most likely the Senju had found out that he had adopted Naruto as his son and was furious about it. The thought made him grin. Although the thoughts of not being able to acknowledge Minato as his real son sobered his good mood, it was just too risky to do. Sasuke was fuming at first. The young boy didn't want to be locked in his own home. But he accepted it after Madara had helped the Izuna lookalike with his training. A few hints and tips here and there had satisfied the power-hungry boy. Satisfied enough that he had even given Naruto a few tips for the Gokaku. Although maybe the need for another to bear the crest of the Uchiha and flaunt to the world that the Uchiha were not dead influenced his decision. When Naruto had succeeded in blowing out a fireball the size of a small house, had Madara and Sasuke grinning in pride for their fellow clansmen. They had bonded much over the long 3 days. Madara cautiously opened the main gate. Sasuke and Naruto with the Uchiha fan displayed proudly on the back of the long navy shirt at his flanks. Sasuke was nominated to be the one to look outside first, getting glares from the duck-but-haired boy for being the sacrifice. Half-heartedly, of course. Sasuke peeked outside cautiously and leaped back in surprise, an undignified squeak leaving his lips at the sight of Senju Hashirama's angry face inches from his own. Madara! Open up, you bastard, I've got a few words for you. Hashirama roared, banging on the wood door after it was hastily shut by the 3 Uchiha. Sasuke sighed in relief. Hashirama had a really scary face when he was angry. It looked weird on the normally cheerful man's face. Why would I open up? Madara roared back. No sane man would. Just open up for Kami's sake. Sasuke worked up enough courage to shout at Hashirama on his own. Go away. We don't want you here. There was silence after Sasuke's shout. Everyone looked at each other confused. Had Hashirama left? No. Madara murmured quietly. The Hashirama that I know wouldn't give up like that. He is probably waiting for us to drop our guard and then barge in like the idiot that he is. Naruto nodded in agreement, though Madara's words hadn't settled Sasuke's nerves one bit. Can he get in? Naruto asked softly, casting an apprehensive look at the gates. Surprisingly, it was Sasuke that answered. No. For someone to get in, the gates gave to be open. The seals that protect our compound won't let anyone in otherwise. Madara nodded in agreement. Sasuke is right. For now, we play the waiting game. The game hadn't lasted long. Hello? Came Hashirama's cheerful voice. It had originated from right beneath them. Ga! All of the Uchihos shouted in surprise, leaping back and watching Hashirama's head emerge from the ground. Once Hashirama had fully emerged, the Senju brushed the dirt off his armor nonchalantly, not even noticing the Uchiha that surrounded him. The man turned to Sasuke. You need to recharge your seals. There is a weak point under the ground, about 53 meters northeast from the main array. Sasuke hesitantly nodded once, his fear back once again as Hashirama's ki swept out him in waves as he looked at Madara. Madara-chan, Hashirama sang, his anger lacing his voice. Are you going to tell me what's going on? Adopting Naruto-chan out of the blue like that, wouldn't discussing things like this before acting upon them be best? You wouldn't want me to get really angry with you, now would you? Madara gulped and stepped back cautiously. It was dangerous to be around Hashirama when he was like this. To placate the Senju, Madara shook his head frantically, trying to get words out and to explain to Hashirama. Et2. What can I do to make it up to you? Madara asked nervously, not finding the words to explain to Hashirama about the current predicament. Hashirama thoughtfully stroked his chin, like he had a beard. Hashirama already knew what he was going to ask of Madara. He had decided yesterday. You, me and Naruto are going to revive Tobirama. Using Naruto's modified technique. Madara and Naruto looked at each other, both slumping in unison. This is going to be troublesome. Both thought. They were standing in the same clearing, that seemed, so long ago, that Naruto revived Madara and Hashirama. Is this really going to work? Naruto asked. It worked by chance last time. Don't worry. Hashirama replied, cheerfully unrolling the forbidden scroll of seals on the ground. It'll work, you have me and Madara to help you. Madara and I. The Uchiha corrected absently. Shut up. Hashirama sniped back automatically. Hashirama stepped back and observed his work, nodding when everything was in place. DNA please. Naruto handed the vial of blood to Hashirama, watching as the Senju handed it to his Kage Bunshin, who was shifting every few seconds nervously. Madara originally was the person that had to carry the DNA, but the man had vehemently refused to even go near anything of Tobirama's, leaving the job to Naruto. Okay. Hashirama clapped. It's better that I stand right in front of him when he is revived. He will probably go on a killing rampage when he sees you, Madara. It's to be expected. Madara and Hashirama held their hands in the ram's seal, ready to channel chakra through Naruto as needed. Naruto took a deep breath and let it out, trying to relax his body. I'm ready. Tiger, snake, dog, dragon, clap hands, this was it. Kuchios, he intoned, channeling most of his chakra. He felt the warmth of Hashirama's and the cold, familiar feeling of Madara's chakra running through him to replenish his rapidly diminishing reserves. Edot Tensei. The blonde roared, slamming his hand down on the drawn seal. Sealing lines shot out from the main matrix, red in color. They rapidly overtook the Kage Bunshin and ash materialized from the ground, covering the screaming clone from view. Hashirama stepped forward and stopped right in front of where Tobirama's face would be in a few seconds. Soon the Night-Aim Hokage stood in all his glory. Clad in blue armor over a plain black suit, the distinctive white fur collar shifting in the wind. The 3 red lines that marked his face, white shaggy hair. The Happuri that took the place of a Hittite. Senju Tobirama had returned to the impure world. Dark red eyes opened and gazed impassively upon his older brother. Welcome back to the living Otuto. Tobirama looked at Hashirama once again, taking in the relatively alive look to his brother. Only Hashirama's sclerae, which were black, gave him any idea that his brother was not alive, but an Edot Tensei body like himself. Hello, Anija Edot Tensei? Hashirama nodded in the affirmative, but narrowed his eyes at Tobirama. Don't freak out, Tobirama. He's on our side. Tobirama's eyebrows furrowed in confusion at his Anija's words. Who was on their side? Looking past Hashirama, all he saw was wild black hair before he disappeared. Madara. Madara himself was looking impassively at the approaching Senju, his Iron Mangekyo easily following his movements. Tobirama was far below his level. He needn't worry. Although Naruto, on the other hand, he darkly chuckled on the inside, his face remaining emotionless. This should be interesting. Naruto watched with horror as Hashirama's brother came closer. He was so fast that he had to use his Sharingan to keep up with him. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. He needed to see faster, better. More. To protect his Ota-san. Naruto conveniently forgot that his father was an Edot Tensei body that couldn't die. All that mattered was to protect Ota-san. He leaped in the line of fire, a hand on the hilt of his sword, Sharingan glaring. Unseen to him, a second Tomo manifested in the blood-red depths of his Sharingan. The new Tomo spinning wildly as Tobirama's approach became slower. No! It wasn't enough. On instinct, Naruto held his hands out towards the Senju. He felt an immense chakra building. It was his own, not the Kyuubi's. It was building up and building up before he could hold it back no longer. Kongo Fuza, adamantine sealing chains, he murmured, watching with detached wonder as black chains shot out of his outspread hands towards the Senju, who had foolishly stopped in the face of his chains. His chains with red Tomo points. The chains bound Tobirama rapidly, wrapping around him and digging into the ground, making the man fall to his knees. The kneeling man looked up slightly surprised, though his eyes widened even further when he caught sight of Naruto. The chains that were as black as night emerging from his hands. Tobirama looked up at the boy's face, the boy clad in Uchiha garb. The obviously Uzumaki boy who had the Sharingan. Two tomos spinning widely were contained in the hateful eyes of the boy. Looking closer, he could see a faint resemblance to Madara in the boy's face. The shape of the eyes, cheekbones, and the jaw were all Madara. A descendant? The boy spoke softly, but Tobirama could still hear him, as far away as he was. You will not hurt Ota-san. The Uchiha Uzumaki boy spoke with such devotion, such love, such determination, that Tobirama couldn't help but believe that what the boy said was true. No one would hurt his Ota-san. With the Uchiha Uzumaki facing away and Hashirama focused on the glinting chains, only Tobirama saw the look in Madara's eyes. The glint of pride, insanity, and was that possession? Yes, Madara seemed very possessive of the Uchiha Uzumaki boy. When their eyes met, red upon red, that smug smirk that Madara gave him. The smirk that spoke volumes to the younger Senju. What did you think of that? The smirk said. Such a loyal weapon, isn't he? Only Tobirama would be able to discern these thoughts and words from Madara's expressions. No other knew him well enough. Even Hashirama couldn't see what he saw. That same look Madara had when he gazed upon Izuna in the throes of battle and war. When Izuna succeeded in his tasks. When Izuna. That was Izuna's sword on Uzumaki's back. He realized. I would recognize it anywhere. Izuna's outfit. Izuna's weapon. The same look on Izuna's face whenever he was in the presence of his brother. It's like he's molding Uzumaki into Izuna. Tobirama's eyes widened with the revelation. What the? Naruto. Naruto, a strong name, maelstrom or fish cake. Who the hell names their son fish cake? Let him go, Naruto. Madara spoke softly, although the command lingered in the undertones of the Uchiha's deep voice. The chains retreated immediately, sinking into the skin of Naruto's hands. Tobirama saw that the ends of the chains had tomos-shaped blades. Blood red like the color of the Sharingan. Hashirama regained his voice finally, though he was still shocked. Why don't we go home? We can talk there. Madara and Tobirama glared at each other discreetly, not wanting to be anywhere near each other. Madara sneered before nodding, his expression mirrored by Tobirama. Let's go then. Hashirama cheered, taking a hold of Madara and Tobirama and dragging them along by their arms. The two hit many trees as they ran, unable to dodge as that would mean getting closer to the other. Naruto followed behind, his thoughts jumbled up. He looked at his hands and imagined the black chains coming out again. He tripped up and nearly fell when they shot out his hands and grabbed nearby trees, stopping him from falling in his surprise. Whoa! He murmured. These chains were so cool. Go train with Sasuke, Naruto. Practice your taijutsu, were Madara's words when they reached the Uchiha compound. Hi! The boy ran off, hair as bright as the sun almost glowing in the light of the sunset. The Uchiha compound was now on the edges of Konoha, far from where it was when Tobirama was Hokage. Walking through the empty streets, Tobirama wondered where all the Uchiha were. They were normally flooding this place. The Uchiha were all massacred 5 years ago, by one of their own. On the orders of Danzo. Hashirama told Tobirama softly, whispering in the white-haired man's ear. Tobirama's normally impassive face slackened with shock and his eyes widened. What? Tobirama felt sympathy for the young boy, even though he was an Uchiha. No one deserved to watch as their whole clan were killed right in front of their eyes. We're here, Madara said, cutting off all conversation. It was a modest house, away from all the others. Tobirama figured that it was Madara's personal home. As they walked inside and sat down, Madara grudgingly went to make some tea or bring some sake. How old was this Sasuke when it happened? Tobirama asked his brother. The answer sent him back into reflection. 7. Kami. It was the Sengoku Jidai all over again. The hidden villages were made to stop these kind of things, not endorse them. Danzo. Tobirama snarled, the meddling bastard had gone too far this time. Even back when he was alive, Tobirama saw that Danzo had a dark manipulative glint in his eyes. The glint that called for world domination. When he had the chance, he was going to go and kill the son of a bitch. Wait. Think rationally, Tobirama. Think of the repercussions on the village if Danzo was killed. And besides, don't the Uchiha have the most right to kill Danzo? Sasuke would be wanting revenge. The curse of hatred surely was awakened in the boy when the clan was massacred. Let's observe him first. Both Sasuke and Naruto. Maybe they could be redeemed. Like Kagami. They all took sips of their drink, watching each other closely. The who would break first game was ongoing. It seemed Tobirama's curiosity got the better of him. So, the Senju paused and took a deep drink. Naruto. How is he your son? Grandson? He is my grandson. I just adopted him as my son. Which I'm still angry at you about. Hashirama shouted, his normally soft brown eyes as hard as obsidian. What I'm curious about is the identity of your son. The father of your grandchild. Tobirama inquired, his wine-red eyes observing Madara's every move, every facial expression. Madara sighed, fingering his sake dish. He didn't want to tell Tobirama of all people. But he knew the Senju would never be satisfied with diversions. The name of my son was Namikaze Minato. Kuroi Senko Yandame Hokage. Tobirama sat stunned, an Uchiha Hokage? Unthinkable. So, let me get this straight. Minato is a Uchiha. No. Madara put his drink on the table and crossed his arms, an amused glint in his obsidian eyes. Tobirama paused, but you just said that he was your son. Tobirama also placed his drink down. Yes, he is my son, but he's not an Uchiha though. How can he not be an Uchiha if he's your son? You're an Uchiha. Tobirama pointed accusingly at Madara. So by default, everyone that is related to me is a Uchiha. The former leader of the Uchiha clan deadpanned. Yes. But Minato isn't an Uchiha. Yes, he is. He's your son. Tobirama was standing up at this point. But he isn't an Uchiha though, look. Madara placed a picture of a man that had blonde hair and bright blue eyes. It was like an older Naruto. The Senju slammed his hands on the table. He was born to you, he has your DNA, your looks kind of he's an Uchiha. Why are you so insistent that he's an Uchiha? I thought that you wouldn't want an Uchiha as a Hokage. Minato was Yandame. Oh, this was rich. That's not the point of this argument, Madara. That is the point of this argument. You keep insisting that my son is an Uchiha when he is not. Madara wasn't flustered one bit from the argument. In fact, a smug smirk was spreading across his face. Ak. Just Mada Argh. Perhaps it is the idea that Minato is stronger than you, even though he doesn't have the Sharingan. He even copied and improved your technique. My son to the core. Madara's tone was gloating. You just implied that he was an Uchiha. Tobirama's visage was triumphant, finally getting through to Madara. No, I said he was my son. But you just said wait. What technique? Madara looked mournful. It was the only part of his son that he despised. Hiration, he finally said. Hiration? Tobirama's eyes widened, taking in the implications of Madara's single word. That's what I just said. Madara spoke slowly, as if he was speaking to a particularly slow child. Tobirama lunged across the table at Madara, grabbing the Uchiha's throat and proceeding to choke him. Madara just relaxed, watching Hashirama approach out of the corner of his eye. Hashirama soon ripped his younger brother off of his best friend, pushing the white-haired man back into his seat. Why can't the two of you just get along? Hashirama demanded, hard brown eyes glaring at the two enemies. He is a complete asshole. Tobirama shouted, glaring at the Uchiha. He killed my brother. Madara glared back, his eye in Mangekyo swirling as he held himself back from killing the man, although it wouldn't work as they were all Edot Tensei no matter how alive they looked. Regeneration from death came with the package. Tobirama sneered, boo-hoo, you whore. Me. Hashirama. Previously. He is a complete asshole. Tobirama shouted, glaring at the Uchiha. He killed my brother. Madara glared back, his eye in Mangekyo swirling as he held himself back from killing the man, although it wouldn't work as they were all Edot Tensei no matter how alive they looked. Regeneration from death came with the package. Tobirama sneered, boo-hoo, you whore. It was one person, Tobirama, one. Who the hell told you about that anyway? Me. It took 3 days, 7 hours, 26 minutes and 9 seconds for Tobirama to form his opinion of Uchiha Uzumaki Naruto. The boy was an anomaly. Aberration, unnatural, oddity, a deviation from the norm, peculiar, incongruent. Many words could explain the freak of nature that the boy was. Uchiha weren't supposed to act like that. Ha! Got you that time, Ota-san. They weren't supposed to be cheerful, or have the capacity for humor. The Uchiha were angsty bitches with major mental health problems that frequently surface as personality traits such as the HN language, glaring, a wide range of scowls, emo-ness, superiority complexes, obsession with something or another, arrogance and many, many more. Naruto. Hashirama. So many problems that the Uchiha had took up too much room in the brains of their predominantly dark-haired heads and didn't leave space for stuff like feelings, emotions, imagination. You know, the stuff that every other human being had. Come on, Hashi-sensei. Run faster. But Naruto. Kami, save us. Naruto had some Uchiha traits, namely the obsession and the HN. He had also picked up Madara's habit of crossing his arms, but most of the iconic Uchiha fallacies seem to have been tempered by the mixing of Uzumaki and Uchiha blood. Though other, let's say interesting, personality traits have been picked up. Traits that, when combined with the Uchihas, would cause, for lack of a better word, pandemonium. Haha! Naruto! The best one yet! Tobirama still had hope though. The other Uchiha, Sasuke, was your typical run-of-the-mill Uchiha. Emo, broody, arrogant and obsessed with revenge and power. It reassured Tobirama and reminded him that not all of the world had gone to shit. But looking at Naruto crushed his hopes into oblivion once more. Yes, the world had ended. Uchiha Madara, former leader of the Uchiha clan, famed as one of the most powerful and feared shinobi throughout the elemental nations and overall, all-round asshole that only cared for himself and his deceased brother, was sporting a mane of bright orange hair. Tobirama just stared at the once-in-a-lifetime occurrence that was unfolding in front of him, watching with slightly widened red eyes as the orange-haired Madara chased his ninja and the young Uchiha around the training ground, roaring in rage and embarrassment. I'm going to kill you both. Ack. The chase lasted about an hour, the setting changing from the grassy fields that were the training ground to the thick foliage of the trees that gathered around the entirety of Konohagakure. The trio had came back to the field where it all started, stumbling about in exhaustion and not noticing the incredulous and amazed looks that were being sent to them by Tobirama and Sasuke, who had come looking for training a while back. The Kakashi person that led the prepubescence team was a lazy bastard apparently. Hashirama slumped back onto a chair that grew out of the ground where he stood and let his head fall back towards the clear blue sky. Soft laughter could be heard if you came close enough. Madara and Naruto, not having the luxury of growing furniture wherever they wanted, merely lay on the ground and watched the clouds with Hashirama. They were also laughing, seemingly gotten over the fact that Madara had spontaneously changed his hair and eyebrow color to bright orange. Team 11 was strange. Any Tobirama-san? HM? The man in question turned to look at the blonde boy who had, somehow, snuck up on him, Senju Tobirama. Though he didn't want to admit it, the boy had grown on him with his happy demeanor that was so much like Hashirama's. At least he wasn't too like that bastard Madara. Tobirama didn't think he could live with two Madaras in the world. Why are you always moody? Naruto backtracked at the sight of the Senju's ominous stare. I mean, 'cause every time I see you, you look like something has crawled up your ass and died. Is there a reason? Scratch that thought. The boy was just like Madara. It's just how I am, Naruto. There is no explanation. The boy just gave HN in response and walked away from the Senju and leaped off the stone head of Madara's son and free fell through the air, disappearing in a vortex of leaves mid-fall. Definitely like Madara. Tobirama stood behind a particularly thick tree, eyes closed as he listened to Hashirama and the boy train. Again. Naruto-kun, don't give up. There was a pause after Hashirama's words. Only the sounds of a person breathing heavily gave any indication that someone actually was in the clearing. Yes, sensei. The boy panted out. Tobirama could hear the faint taps of the boy's footsteps as he rushed forward towards Hashirama and the clashing of swords as the two battled against each other in a deadly dance of death. Hashirama didn't believe in coddling and therefore employed similar training techniques that Madara used. Attack till they break. Then rebuild anew with the pieces. Naruto had progressed massively with this training program as it uniquely suited his way of learning. Unlike the generalized teaching methods that the academy had fallen to in the years after his death. Tobirama looked forward to seeing the kind of shinobi that Naruto would grow to being. He, like Madara and Hashirama, could see the hidden potential deep within the boy. Potential that was just waiting for the right trigger to be unleashed. He turned his attention back to the battlefield just to sense a massive buildup of chakra. Kongo Fuza. The clinking of rattled chains was heard throughout the air, as the muted black metal burst out of the ground to rush at Hashirama, who dodged cleanly. Well done, Naruto-kun. Always look for ways to surprise your opponent. Hold nothing back just because it is morally wrong, that will get you killed. Naruto rushed at Hashirama again and attempted to attack once more with his sword. Yes, sensei. Tobirama watched as the Uchiha Uzumaki sat at the kitchen table of Madara's house, a pink tongue sticking out of the corner of his mouth as he focused on whatever he was doing. Taking a closer look, Tobirama could see diagrams of what could be an explosive seal, but each array was different in some way. A thin book lay on the table next to Naruto, which the blonde wrote in periodically after a few modifications to the basic seal. Intrigued, and not wanting to pass up the opportunity to see an Uzumaki in their natural element once more, Tobirama strode towards the young Uzumaki silently, and sat down without a sound, merely watching the boy as he worked. Naruto didn't notice Tobirama's presence till around a half hour later. Even then, it was only because Tobirama had made a comment on Naruto's current seal. Here. The Uzumaki jumped at the sound of the white-haired man's voice. If you lengthen this line 3 mm and add a slight swirl, it will change from your overpowered explosion to a smoke bomb. Naruto's eyes widened as he looked back at Tobirama, then back at his diagram. The blonde added the proposed changes into the notebook, then copied the modified seal onto a slip of sealing paper. running out the room when he was done. 10 minutes later, the boy returned with a triumphant grin plastered across his face. "Hey, Tobirama-san. It worked." Tobirama only nodded in response and waved the boy back to the table. He had a chance to undo some of Madara's influence, and he wasn't going to waste it. "Come. I will help you with some of the theory. And to entice the boy further, if you do well, I may teach you a special technique that can only be done by people like us." Naruto grinned wider and rushed back, sitting down and bouncing enthusiastically in his seat. "Like us?" he asked. "Yes, like us. People with very high chakra reserves." "Come at me, Naruto. With all you have." Naruto's eyes narrowed as he stood defensively against Hashirama. A quick glance to Tobirama and a nod in return made him turn back to Hashirama and grin. "If you say so, Sensei." Naruto held his arms out and concentrated on the feeling of his chakra, creating the conditions needed for his technique, the technique that he had spent the last 3 weeks learning. In the air in front of Naruto, black lines appeared from his open palms, spreading into neat lines and characters, which then began glowing. Naruto brought one of his hands in front of his chest and pulled his fingers into a half-ram seal, grinning even wider. "Katsu!" Hashirama looked around curiously, sifting his long tanned fingers through the smoke to feel the texture and consistency of it. He hummed satisfied. Naruto was getting more creative, using the smoke to hide himself and as a way to sense people inside. But he was better. Leaning back to avoid the sword whistling through the space where his head had just vacated, Hashirama ducked and lashed out with a leg sweep, catching something solid in the smoke. A faint curse and a thud followed, giving Hashirama Naruto's location. A few seconds later the smoke cleared and everyone in the clearing could see again. Naruto slowly got up from the ground, taking Hashirama's offered hand to help himself up. "Well done, Naruto-kun. You're getting better." Hashirama brushed the dust off Naruto's shoulders and looked the young Uchiha over for injuries. Suddenly Hashirama leaped away from Naruto, avoiding the black chains that burst out from the ground beneath him. The chains followed the Senju as he ducked and weaved to avoid the deadly chains. He was so distracted that he did not notice the small bulging of the ground directly behind him. Chains wrapped themselves around the brunette, pulling the man down to the ground onto his knees. The sound of a sword being unsheathed rung through the clearing, the sharp, mirrored metal softly touching Hashirama's neck. "Yield." Hashirama scoffed softly through his nose, eyes closing in amusement as his lips curled up into a soft smile. Madara stepped forward and observed the destroyed field. "I'm impressed." He turned to Tobirama and narrowed his Sharingan eyes curiously. "The Fuinjutsu you're doing, I presume?" Tobirama scoffed. "Of course. Where else would he learn the materializing technique?" "Don't get antsy." Madara looked back at Naruto. "I was just asking." "Well, don't. I have not the patience or the desire to answer your presumptuous questioning." Madara smirked at Tobirama before walking over to Hashirama and Naruto. Throwing his head over his armored shoulder, Madara's smirk widened into a mad grin. "It won't work, bastard. You're out of time." Tobirama narrowed his eyes and turned to walk away. "But I'll try anyway. It is never too late." Madara grinned darkly, Iron Mangekyo glowing menacingly. "Gunbai fan wind." Madara was pushed back a few meters, his arms coming up to shield his face from the flying debris. Pulling his arms down and peeking over, he watched as Naruto lowered his gunbai and readied it to swing again. Madara disappeared with nary a sign, no smoke or leaves marking his exit. Only his afterimage which faded away. A kunai was laid on Naruto's throat, making the blonde tilt his head slightly to look at Madara from the corner of his eye, his 3 Tomo Sharingan swirling slowly as he watched his father. Gunbai fanned wind. A stronger gust of wind flew from the war fan and hit Madara with the force of an especially strong punch from Hashirama, making the elder Uchiha fly back into the air. Madara righted himself quickly, landing on his feet and skidding across the ground in the wake of his momentum. The raven-haired man brushed the dust of his armor and looked up at Naruto, Sharingan flaring to life. "Better. Keep practicing. Now we work on ninjutsu." Naruto nodded, sealing the fan into his wrist. "As we have worked on futon so far, it is time we moved on to katon. Your Kage Bunshin can continue cutting the waterfall while the real you works on burning this leaf." Madara handed Naruto a leaf that he had pulled from nowhere. "Now katon is a volatile element. It is the common mizu leaf that we control the flames, but the idea is not to control it but to. You know, Naruto. It's Madara's birthday today." Naruto turned to Hashirama with wide eyes. "Seriously?" He tore at his shoulder-length blonde hair in horror. "I didn't even know." Hashirama pulled himself up proudly and pointed his finger up into the sky. "Not to worry, my brave disciple, I will give you the initiative and ideas for your gift to the cold-hearted Madara-chan." Naruto turned to Hashirama desperately, the fawn of hair that covered his right eye pushed out of the way absently as the puppy dog eyes were beamed at the Senju. "Tell me please," Hashirama whispered in Naruto's ear fugitively, looking around for any eavesdroppers. "Ota-san." "HM?" Madara turned round to look at Naruto, who was holding out a tray of inarizushi. "Happy birthday, Ota-san." Madara looked up at Naruto's face, which was bright and smiling in happiness, his normal cold hard eyes softening. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," he replied, gently taking the tray from the boy and lifting a morsel of the best food in the world. Taking a bite, his eyes widened in delight, and he quickly cleared the tray of food, the delicious foodstuff disappearing as fast as it came. Naruto smiled wider and looked away abashed, when Madara looked at him gleefully. "Where did you get this?" "It was delicious." Naruto twirled his hair through his fingers shyly. "I made it." Madara looked surprised, before he smiled softly. "Thank you?" "That's not all." Madara tilted his head in confusion, but Naruto quickly explained further when he unsealed a scroll from his arm. A mystery as to how he located it, as the arm was covered in many kinds of seals. "Here." He handed the scroll to Madara and ran away quickly, a testament to his training as it took less than a second for the boy to disappear. Madara unrolled the scroll carefully, eyes widening when he got far enough. "Where the hell did he get this?" Next day. "Merry Christmas." "Come on, get out of your bed, Madara. Present time." "Fuck off, Hashirama, it's 3 in the morning." "What's going on?" came Naruto's sleepy voice. Hashirama turned from Madara's bed and beamed at Naruto. "Christmas." Naruto just grumbled at Hashirama incoherently and walked away, his hand dislodging the sleeping cap on his head. "Come on," Hashirama whined. "Is anyone going to get up?" "No. Go back to bed, Hashirama. Or I'll kill you." "So mean." "Here, Madara. This is for you. And oh, Naruto, this is for you. Tobirama. This is for you." Hashirama was handing out presents to everyone in the room, overexcited for the holiday of giving. "Here you go, Sasuke." He handed his last gift to the Uchiha, who held it from himself fearfully, like it was an active explosive tag. "Come on, open them." Naruto opened his up first, being the bravest. And out from the wrapping came a framed photo of Team 11, from when they first got the full team photo. Also a stuffed Hashirama and Madara fell out. It was rather cute. Naruto looked at Hashirama with a smile on his face. "Thanks." Tobirama walked over from the doorway and laid a fairly large box in Naruto's lap, walking back to his position by the door and swirling a kunai around his index finger, his red eyes looking at the small gift from Hashirama with suspicion. Naruto opened up the box. Inside was a full sealing kit. With many high-quality brushes, ink and sealing paper, it was one of his most favorable gifts yet. A pile of books were piled up the side of the box, and a quick peek inside revealed some advanced sealing books. Naruto grinned at Tobirama, who was looking at Naruto blankly. "Thanks." Tobirama nodded and turned to Madara, who handed Naruto a large scroll. Naruto looked in it carefully, eyes widening as he progressed through the carefully written text. Rolling the scroll back up and laying it aside, Naruto engulfed Madara in a hug, murmuring a soft thank you in the man's ear. Madara smiled and released Naruto, letting him go back to his pile of gifts. Sasuke handed Naruto a box of a fair size, which Naruto took carefully, taking a box from his own side and handing it to Sasuke, who looked wide-eyed at Naruto, murmuring a thank you in return. Naruto was drawn out of his observing of his gift from Sasuke when Madara stood up suddenly and left the room, followed not that closely by Tobirama. Hashirama chuckled softly, his brown eyes glimmering with mischief. It was fun, pranking Mata-chan and Tobi-chan. "We're here." The building loomed in front of the three shinobi, harsh winter sunlight beaming down onto the wet surroundings, reflecting off of the shallow puddles and shiny waves. "HN," came the reply. "Mao. Can't you both lighten up a bit? It's the Chunin exams. We're moving up in the world." Silence. "You both haven't been happy since Christmas. What's wrong?" Madara exploded. "What's wrong? What's fucking wrong? You for fuck's sake. You're what's fucking wrong? You know that. Come on, Ota-san, we can shout at Hashirama later. We have an exam to get to." Madara breathed deeply to calm himself down and turned to the academy building in front of him. The stepping stone for his power, but also for removing his genin rank. It was embarrassing. Hashirama pulled on Madara's and Naruto's arms, leading them inside the building and past the horribly weak genjutsu on the second floor. They were on their way to room 301 when they were stopped in a side room by Team 7. Sasuke looked a little beaten up, his Sharingan spinning slowly as he looked at Team 11. Sai and Sakura stood behind Sasuke, promoting his image of being the leader for his team. "I would like," Sasuke started. To propose an alliance or truce if an alliance is too much, between our two teams. You don't attack us, we don't attack you. What's in it for us? Naruto asked, a slight sneer on his face and his uncovered eye glaring. The two Uchiha stared at each other for a minute, before both burst out into laughter, confusing the remainder of Team 7. Naruto stepped forward and shook Sasuke's outstretched hand. Sure. Let's go then. Sasuke's mouth twitched into a small smirk. Naruto smirked darkly back. Let's. It's showtime. Naruto drawled, hands poised on the closed doors to the room. Hashirama smiled and Madara smirked. Naruto pushed the doors open and they flew back with a bang, startling everyone, bar Sasuke and a red-headed teen at the back of the room. He just glared. Naruto smirked darkly, making many in the room shiver as it matched the smirk on Madara's face, who actually stood behind Naruto. What's up, bitches? Enjoy. The process of registering and reacting to something shocking was interesting as well as hilarious. At first, there was silence. Afterwards, a few mumbles and mutters, pointing and covered whispers to comrades and friends. Then the voices became louder, the volume began climbing and climbing till it came to a climax. After all of that? Well then. It was all-out pandemonium. Some of the candidates walked out the door on the spot, sending narrowed eyes at the other participants, daring them to try and make the leavers stay. This was about a ninth of the Chunin examinees. 16 people. Well, 48. A few others were forced to leave with their teammates. Around half of the room started screaming. Really, it was quite comical. More people began leaving, and the numbers dropped to around 100 or so. Team 11 were quite surprised by the courage of these people. These people that were trying against Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. Then Madara flared his chakra. Cracks formed on the wood floor and a strong wind burst out from Madara in the wake of his potent chakra. The menacing aura from the dark blue fire that seemed to burn but not burn made a few people faint in shock. Others fell to their knees and the stronger of the lot, a mere 11 people, managed to stay on their feet, although they were overcome with violent shivers. Madara! Stop scaring the little ones, it's bad for business. Hashirama placed a hand on the Uchiha's armored shoulder, making the waves of pure power stop and the room to return to normal. Although it took a while for many people to pick themselves up from the floor. Madara turned his head slightly to look at Hashirama out of the corner of his eye. Just weeding out the weaker ones? They have no business here. Hashirama sighed in disappointment, falling into his depressive state when he saw Naruto agreeing with Madara. I'm surrounded by bloodthirsty idiots, he mumbled, poking a stick into the ground. Naruto slapped Hashirama across the head, making the Senju fall over onto his face. Stop acting like an idiot, Hashi-sensei. This is the Chunin exams, I will not let you hold me back because of your idiocy. Hashirama sighed once again. You were so much nicer a few months back, he said sadly. Naruto gave a HN in reply and went to stand next to Madara, who was looking at his adopted son proudly. Hashirama scoffed and ran over to Team 7. Sasa-kun! Sakura-chan! Sai-kun! Mata and Nero are being mean! The Senju flung himself over Sai and began sobbing. What will I do, now that my team has abandoned me? Sasuke began edging away, sending short glances at Hashirama to check that he wasn't watching. Sakura followed, but not to the great distance of Sasuke. Sai patted the Shodai Hokage on the head, like one would pat a dog. Do not worry, Shodai-sama. As this book says. He took a book out of his pouch titled, How to Make and Keep Friends. Friendships will go through some rough patches, but good friends will always get back together. It is certain. Hashirama sighed and tried to peer around to look at the blurb of the book. Really? He asked. Sai nodded. Friendships like the one between you and your team have a 89.9978693% chance of getting back together. Hashirama clapped enthusiastically. Well then. Thank you, Sai. Sai bowed modestly. It was nothing, Shodai-sama. Hashirama grinned, showing a full set of gleaming pearl teeth that stood out starkly from his dark tan skin. He ran back to his team and flung his arms around the two Uchiha's shoulders. We're going to destroy this exam. Naruto shoved Hashirama's heavy arm off his shoulder. Figuratively or literally? He asked, sounding a little interested. Hashirama stood back up properly and looked up at the ceiling and thought. His chocolate brown eyes narrowed as he danced side to side slightly. Well, he started. I suppose we could do both, maybe. Naruto and Madara looked at each other and gave identical dark grins. Welp. Hashirama pushed the two forward towards the rookie 12. Hello? He greeted everyone enthusiastically. Marino Ibiki, head of the torture and intelligence, or better known as the TNI department, didn't know whether to revel or be angry in the fact that someone was knocking fear into the brats. Looking through the hole in the Kakuremino no Jutsu, disguise technique, a horrendously underused and underestimated technique that could fool most high-level ninja if utilized efficiently. Ibiki watched as the two above Kage-level shinobi and the high Chunin/low Jonin-level genin terrorized the Chunin wannabe brats. He frowned in thought and held out a hand to the side. Coffee. A mug was handed to him instantly. He took a sip of the bitter hot liquid and smirked, scaring his subordinates half to death. He drained the mug quickly and held his hand out once more. Another. It took 2 minutes, but another mug was handed to him, making him take a sip. Humming, Ibiki looked contemplative. Who made this? He demanded. One of the more brave Chunin stepped forward. Me, sir. Ibiki looked him over and nodded. You've been promoted. My personal coffee maker from now on. Better than running errands for Hokage-sama anyway. The Chunin slumped in relief and stepped back into the crowd, taking friendly slaps on the back as he went. Ibiki took another sip of coffee. I love the smell of coffee and fear in the morning, he muttered darkly. Sir? It's near enough 3 in the afternoon. Ibiki gave a vague wave motion absently. Shush, you'll ruin the moment. He sipped his coffee, watching as the Shodai Hokage made a fool of himself yet remained the most feared one in the room. Life was good for Marino Ibiki. A cautious hello? Was the reply to Hashirama's cheerful greeting. Hashirama let the two Uchiha stand up straight and flung his arms over Kiba and Shikamaru, a wide grin on his face. How is everyone? He asked. The teams looked at each other sneakily, then back at the Senju. A few pointed looks and sharp elbow jabs made Ino walk forward and stand before Hashirama. We are good, Shodai-sama. Hashirama shook his head in exasperation. Ino-chan. How many times do I have to tell you all to call me Hashirama? None of that Shodai-sama nonsense, too much effort if you asked me. Nobody was asking you, Madara murmured. Hashirama stood up properly and pointed a tan finger at Madara, a half-hearted glare on his face. Shut up, you bastard. Nobody was asking you either. Naruto laughed softly, blue eyes twinkling in amusement as he sneaked behind the ranting Senju. He shoved the man forward, making Hashirama fall on his face again. Hashirama gave a small shout of surprise, his voice muffled by the thick wood floor. The former Hokage got up slowly, brushing off invisible dust from his armor. Naruto, he whined. Stop being mean like Madara, you're supposed to be the nice one. The blonde genin smirked playfully, nudging the older man with his elbow. Hashirama sighed and flung his head into his palms. He looked up at the gray-haired young adult that was approaching the group slowly and narrowed his eyes imperceptibly. A glance to Madara and a nod in return confirmed his suspicions. The man approached Team 7, who were standing on the verges of the group. They walked over and caught Sasuke shoving the man away, stating that he didn't need the help of a weakling. Naruto walked over to the other Uchiha and activated his 3-tomo Sharingan. Is he bothering you, Sasuke? The blonde Uchiha turned his head slightly to glare at the gray-haired man, who was beginning to sweat. I'd be happy to take care of him for you. Sasuke smirked and closed his eyes, opening them to reveal his Sharingan, which also had 3 tomos. No, Sasuke murmured. I'm sure that he is just a little delusional, thinking that me, an Uchiha, would require the help of anyone else. The Uchiha are the most powerful clan in the world. We will easily destroy all here in this exam. Sasuke looked around the room slowly, his Sharingan seemingly challenging anyone who met his blank gaze. Someone scoffed at the back of the room. The sea of people obscuring the way parted quickly, revealing 2 teams of IWA. The one who scoffed stepped forward, her short black hair swaying as she strode forward arrogantly, pink eyes narrowed as she glared at the 2 young Uchiha. Watch what you say, brat. You aren't worth the scum on my boots, she snarled. IWA will be the only one who progresses through this exam with any success. All other opponents will be due to sheer dumb luck. On another note, she leaned forward and spat at Sasuke's feet. The Uchiha are a dead clan, only 3 of you survive. The 2 brats I see before me, and a traitor to your village, the one that killed them all. You are nothing but the weak remains of what was an even weaker clan. You should be lucky that IWA she was cut off by the faint scrape of a sword unsheathing and a small nick to her neck. She turned her head slightly, looking down at the mirrored katana that faintly touched her neck. The black-haired girl looked up the length of the sword, only to meet glaring red eyes with 3 tomos spinning wildly within. Don't ever insult the Uchiha clan. Each word was accented with small push with the sword, drawing it closer to her pale neck. It was close enough to draw a little blood. The girl gulped and stepped back towards her team, her eyes narrowing as the 2 other Uchiha stepped behind the blonde one. She scoffed again and turned around, striding back with a glare thrown over her shoulder. The silver-haired man pushed up his glasses with a finger and shuffled through his deck of cards, taking out one after a few seconds. Kuratsuchi, the man revealed, looking up at the circle of Konoha nin that looked at him. She's 3 years older than you and the granddaughter of the Sandaime Tsuchikage. Madara looked at the girl closely. Yes, the two look similar. She has the Yotan Kekai Genkai, lava style. All other skills are unknown. She has been on 8 D rank, 45 C rank and 5 B rank missions. She is considered a genius back in IWA, alongside her teammates who are unknown. The man put away his cards and looked at everyone slyly. She is a powerful opponent to be sure. The 3 Uchiha scoffed and turned away from the man, walking over to Hashirama to stand until the exam started. The room erupted into whispers after the confrontation, everyone gossiping over the IWA/Konoha argument. It wasn't long after that a large plume of smoke erupted from the raised platform at the back of the room. It cleared to reveal a bunch of Konoha nin. Shut up, you brats. The first test in the Chunin exam will begin now, apologizes for the wait. The scarred man turned to glare at everyone. Well? Get moving, you sacks of useless flesh. Hand in your applications and get a seating arrangement card now. Naruto ground his teeth nervously, looking down at the almost blank piece of paper in front of him with trepidation. He hated paper tests. The exam had started half an hour ago, and he had yet to finish the test. He had managed to do 1 or 2, but the rest eluded his mind. They were just too hard. The blonde looked to the left and right, not seeing anyone that he recognized. Hashirama was in front, around 4 rows, and he assumed that Madara was behind him. Naruto thumped his head on the desk in despair, groaning softly. He looked back to his paper and narrowed his eyes, Sharingan whirling to life. He stared at the paper for a bit, hoping for the answers to pop out at him. Suddenly, a small pulsing started between his eyes, pushing something forward. He recognized it as a genjutsu and stopped struggling, knowing that only Madara was strong enough to place a genjutsu on his chakra, which was lined by the cubies. Ink spread across his page and formed into words, filling the empty answer boxes with what seemed to be the answers. Naruto picked up his pencil and began writing over the ink, copying word for word in the same handwriting. He knew that by doing this, he would be left with the answers after the genjutsu was dispelled. 10 minutes later he had finished and the ink faded away, leaving being his copied answers behind. Naruto gave a small smirk and turned his paper over, feeling Madara's smirk behind him. He leaned back and watched as a few teams were thrown out in the remaining 5 minutes. Time's up! Ibiki shouted. Get ready for the 10th question. He looked around the room, taking in the variety of facial expressions. Before we get to the last question, I'm going to add another rule. The Sunanin that went to the toilet came back into the room, a wide smirk on his face. Looks like you're in luck, kid. The time you've wasted playing with dolls hasn't been put to waste. Sit down and don't worry about it. Ibiki drawled, a sardonic look on his scarred face. This rule is absolute. You will choose whether or not to take the 10th question. He continued, still drawling. The room remained silent, all hooked on the words of the proctor. Let me explain for the more thick-headed of you brats. Take the question and answer it correctly. You have nothing to worry about. Home free, as it were. However, he looked around again at the room, taking in the nervous and frightened faces. If you reject the question, not even attempting to give it a try, all points gained will be lost, and you, alongside your teammates, will fail. If you take the question and fail to answer it correctly, Ibiki smirked. You will forfeit all right to apply to any future Chunin exams again ever. Almost the entire room erupted in protest at the Tokubetsu Jonin's words, a few even standing up to shout at Ibiki. Quiet! He roared, slamming his closed fist into the wall behind him. I have been upfront with you idiotic children. Let me elaborate once more, for those of you who still remain. Take the opportunity to leave with a failing grade right here, try again later in another exam. If you are remaining doubtful, be smart, and leave now. Ibiki waited a moment for the Chunin wannabes to take his words. Ready? Then let's begin. Those who choose to reject the question, raise your hands. When your number has been confirmed, gather your teammates, get their numbers confirmed and leave the room quietly. The room went silent. I quit. I'm rejecting the question. A Konoha ninja shouted, standing up with his hand raised. Jenna, Inaho, forgive me. Such a weakling, Naruto mused, watching as the man walked, shaking, out of the room. Number 50 failed. Gather your teammates numbers 130 and 111. Konoha thanks you for your participation thus far. 2 other Konoha nin stood up and left silently, patting the afraid Genin on the back. And me too. The wave of rejections began. Ninja after ninja started leaving until only half remained. Is that everyone? Ibiki asked ominously. The special Jonin looked down with closed eyes and smirked slightly. Well done to those who remained. He looked up and smirked wider. You have just passed the first exam. All 54 that remain here, you just passed. The room went silent before erupting into noise. Some were shocked, others relieved. Some were crowing in joy. In the overwhelming din of noise, one could hear Sakura shout out in confusion. What do you mean past? She screeched. When did that happen? What about the 10th question? Ibiki grinned. There is no 10th question beyond the whole accept or reject thing. Heh, Naruto thought. Hey! Asuna Nin protested. Then why did we have to suffer through the other 9 questions? A total waste of our time. No waste. Ibiki drawled. The purpose of those questions have been achieved, and if you haven't realized what that purpose was, then you're just an idiot with luck. Naruto inwardly snorted in amusement. This guy was a blast. Such as? She queried. To test your skills in gathering information, Ibiki proclaimed. Oh. Ibiki had went on about how the exam worked, how they were supposed to cheat, and how there were fake plants to get information from. Afterwards the man had pulled his bandana off his head and showed his torture scars, scaring half the room. The Sunanin had asked about the 10th question again, and Ibiki revealed that the 10th question was the real exam. Then there was a rant about Chunin that Naruto didn't listen to. He was playing with his kunai, swirling it around his finger, bored with the proceedings. After Ibiki had finished his speech, they had waited for 10 or so minutes before another man walked in the door, his hands in his pockets and slightly slumped over in laziness. Hello, Ibiki? The man greeted, giving a slight wave to his fellow special jonin. Hello, Shikaku, just in time, we're just finished up here. The man, revealed as Shikaku, turned to the crowd and waved again. Hello, my name's Nara Shikaku. I am going to be your proctor for the 2nd exam. Nice to meet you. Naruto, Hashirama and Madara walked through the forest sedately, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere of the forest of death. Well, peaceful for them. Who knows what everyone else in here thought about it? Hashirama was touching every 3rd tree that they passed, cooing and greeting a few like friends. Madara and Naruto walked behind him, Sharingan eyes on the lookout for anyone coming to attack them. Not that there would be any, but it didn't hurt to be cautious. It was after an hour or so that 2 Naruto clones leaped down from the trees and handed the original a heaven and earth scroll before dispelling. Hashirama, he called ahead, making the Senju turn back. We have the scrolls. The Mokuton wielder grinned and bounced back to the team. To the tower then? He asked. Naruto nodded and ascended to the trees, followed by Hashirama and Madara. They were about to set out towards the tower, but they were stopped by Madara's raised fist. Wait, the older Uchiha murmured. The man dropped down to the ground and touched a single finger to the earth. A few moments later he ran up the side of the tree and off to the east. Follow, was all that he said. Throwing confused glances to each other, Naruto and Hashirama took off after Madara. They easily caught up with him and pushed the pace faster, being only a rustle of leaves to any who took notice of their passage. They ran for half an hour, crossing the entire expanse of the forest quickly. Madara narrowed his eyes and dropped to a lower branch of the tree he was on, running his fingers over the black-covered bark. He lifted his sooty fingers to his nose and sniffed. Sasuke, he murmured. The Uchiha looked up at Hashirama and Naruto. Sasuke was here, this was his katan on the tree here. Who else? Hashirama asked, dropping down next to Madara. Madara closed his eyes again and slightly moved his head side to side. The nature chakra we sensed at the first exam. Dark and putrid, almost snakish. Hashirama touched the burned tree and frowned. What's going on? Naruto asked, dropping down next to Hashirama. Sasuke was attacked by a shinobi with almost Kage-level chakra reserves. Nowhere near our own, but around Sara's level. Madara looked around, leaping over to a lower branch of an adjacent tree. Sai and Sakura. He wiped a small drop of blood off a leaf. Too late. Naruto was about to ask further, but he leaped back suddenly, drawing his sword in the air. Indeed. The man? Hissed. Naruto landed and took in the man, eyes spinning into the Sharingan once he recognized the face. Orochimaru of the Sannin. The snake man smiled widely and tongue came to kiss the edges of thin lips. Uchiha Naruto. A pleasure to meet you finally, you who ruined my plans. Naruto narrowed his eyes and readied his sword in one hand, his Uzumaki chains shooting out of the other, the black chains wrapped around the thick branch in between himself and the snake Sannin, and he prepared to launch himself over the wide expanse. Hashirama shouted just before he leaped. Careful, Naruto-kun. This is the guy who attacked Sasuke, Kage-level reserves, remember? Naruto nodded in response and leaped, swinging with the support of the chain. Reaching the highest he could swing, he let go and allowed himself to fall, racing through a long chain of hand seals. Airware, dash a hoodie. Materialize, free flow of water. Under his feet a large seal with the kanji for Mizu in the center appeared and a wave of water appeared, flowing down in a waterfall-like arch. Naruto landed on the water and began to surf down elegantly, small ripples circling out from his feet that moved across the water. Madara groaned and glared at Hashirama. This screams of Tobirama, though the bastard wouldn't look as amazing doing it. The Uchiha smirked. Hashirama laughed and got on his dragon that emerged from the wood beside him. Get on! The Susanoo is too big to use here. Madara scoffed and ran over to the dragon, landing on the back of it while it flew forward. More wood forming from nothing where it met the tree trunk. Madara ran up the back of the dragon and stopped next to Hashirama, who was making the dragon circle around Naruto and Orochimaru, who were engaged in a fierce sword fight. Madara grinned madly, blood pumping through his veins at the prospect of fighting someone who might give him a challenge. He looked over to Hashirama, who had a small smile on his face. No matter how he may say otherwise, Hashirama was the same as him, looking for a good challenge. I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again, because it matters. I love you people. Seriously. The support I get from you, I don't know how to describe it, just that it makes me so happy to hear from you guys, ideas that you have and stuff, the compliments and urges to update. Well, you probably know if you're a writer yourself. What if Naruto, grandson of Madara and Tobirama? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.